Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe. Hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon, crypto and thanks button in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. Now, we are joined by Neil, 10th Man, and a whole bunch of people in Discord, so welcome one and all.
Good morning, good morning.
Hey, good morning.
Hey, good afternoon.
Good morning, good afternoon, welcome one and all. Good to have you. Now, in a slight change of how the format of the show may progress in future, we're going to do a couple of housekeeping questions today, and then we're going to move on to the video that we definitely didn't get to yesterday, as the entire hour was pretty much taken up with housekeeping questions. Then I transitioned to me testing the computer while still live, not really for great content, but just to stress the computer, which did eventually crash. Anyway, that aside, that's what we're going to do today. So we're going to do a couple of housekeeping questions, which have already been decided in the pre-show. And then we're going to move on to Brian Cox and do some reacting to videos. So that's what we're going to do moving forward. Everybody understand what we're doing? Everybody happy?
Yep, yep.
Yes, let's go.
Excellent. Any evidence?
Sounds good to me.
Except art.
Oh, I said sounds good to me.
Oh, I thought you said except me.
No. I said, yeah, sorry. I was sitting back kind of a little bit further away. Sounds good to me, sir.
Let's stop. Let's do a little plug for Art. Right. Art has got a site that he set up in the last couple of days, or 3 days, and it is a YouTube connected site that gives you access to all Flat Earth content. It's just that simple. You click on it, you click a letter for a channel that you know, and it takes you to all of the channels that have got Flat Earth content beginning with that letter or number. And that's it. It's a really good site. Somebody sent it to me and said, this is a good site, check it out. I did, and I was very impressed. Considering how shiny and new it is, it's amazing. So I'd like you to plug that, if you don't mind. Art Gallery.
The website is flatearthtvguide.com, and basically all it is just a list of channels that are live streaming or uploading Flat Earth content. That just there's a list of usernames, and the programs they go through and check if they're live streaming, like every 5 minutes or every 10 minutes it runs, and it checks to see if all these users are live streaming. If they are, it shows them on the website with their live stream. If they're not, then it just it shows them in the channels so that people can watch their videos that they've uploaded. So it works with both people who are able to live stream, and then there's also channels who are not able to live stream on YouTube, but they upload. And so you can find all kinds of great content. There's no search functionality on there yet, but I will be adding it very soon.
Yeah.
And
I mean, I've disclaimed that it's a very new site, so don't expect it to be super polished. But by the same token, you can see what it is and what it functions as, and immediately it's ace. It doesn't matter that it's got no spin.
Yeah, it's an amazing project. Actually, the thing is this originally was not my idea. Somebody that found out about me from my channel, my YouTube channel, he contacted me and told me about this idea, and I registered the domains like a year ago. And so I've been, kind of thinking, how am I going to build this? What am I going to do? What kind of technology to use, whatever. And then finally, like a week or two ago, I was like, click, that's it. And so I started using some, GitHub Actions or, automation tools, you could say, build automation tools in order to make it work. Before, with other stuff that I was doing, I would just run Linux bash scripts,
Okay, before you get into the technicalities of it, what's the name of the site again? Hopefully one of my mods will type it out.
Flat Earth TV Guide. flatearthtvguide.com.
So flatearthtvguide.com. Hopefully one of my mods will put that in the chat so somebody can click on it and go to it. And hopefully you'll all go and check it out and use it regularly so we can slap ads all over it and monetize the crap out of it. So go and use it. It's ace. And yeah, brilliant stuff. Can't wait to see it all shiny and covered in ads. Wonderful stuff. Can't wait. Brilliant. But in the meantime, it's bare bones and you can just use it without any, spit and polish on it or any ads at all at the moment. But it will be, hopefully, covered in ads. We'll see.
And when you go live, you can go in there and then copy your live stream and share it with everybody so that they can see your live stream from there without having to like use it on the YouTube site. And then they can bounce around between others who are live streaming too. And kind of, I don't know. It's just an awesome kind of tool to have everything all in one place.
And you got the
I'm
website
kind of tired.
name
I
wrong.
haven't slept.
And you got the website name wrong. Hold on. Hold on. So it's FETVguide.com, correct?
Yeah, it's both names work. FlateArthTVGuide.com and FETVGuide.com for short.
Perfect. So yeah, FETVguide.com. Go and check it out. You'll love it. I did, and so will you. Brilliant.
And if you're logged in with your YouTube account, you can actually chat from there.
Oh, it's mega. I think it's ace, but we plugged it enough. I'm sure people will go and check it out. Okay, let's do...
Thank you so much, Nathan. I love you,
my
bro.
pleasure. But we're going to do housekeeping. So any evidence of a physical geometric sphere edge, that's a horizon, formerly known as Earth curve.
Negative.
Good morning.
Not on my watch.
No.
Morning, Owen. Morning, chocolate.
These are both late.
Whatever. Right. Any evidence of a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the center of a presupposed spherical Earth?
Just articles on it, stuff about the core stopped spinning, started spinning the other way, so on and so forth. So I noticed that on Discord, people posting some links to that.
And
But that's not necessarily evidence. I mean, it's just chit chat.
that was my next
Hold
question.
on, I got it.
What's the evidence?
I
What's
got
the primary
evidence.
source information? Where's it coming from? Who says? And why do they say it? And what's it based on?
I haven't really read through them. I just noticed people talking about it, and that's usually all it takes to get people to accept it, it seems.
They
Go on,
said the inner core, the motion. There's no motion in the inner core. It stopped rotating.
Dun dun dun. Well, how's it going to overcome the Curie point relinquishing of any magnetic field? What's that all about?
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
I'll read it to you. If you give me a second, I'll read it to you.
I think that's too hot to handle.
It is. Right, while Neil's digging that out, there is no evidence of this molten iron core. It's completely made up. There's nothing to substantiate it whatsoever. And the claims that they have in terms of P waves and S waves require a flat plane for the return angle. If they were accurate, which they're not. It's the biggest joke of all the housekeeping questions, if you ask me. But anyway.
Listen to this. I got it. Thousands of kilometers beneath our feet, the Earth's inner core may have recently stopped spinning and could even be rotating in the opposite direction. How do you like that? They could basically say anything. The new study published in journal Nature Geoscience analyzed how seismic waves caused by earthquakes passed through the core from the 1960s. Researchers discovered that temporal changes in the waveform shape simultaneously and consistently disappeared around 2009, suggesting that the inner core stopped rotating. That's it. There's the proof.
That's P waves
It's a
and S
molten
waves.
iron
It's the
core.
same proof. It's not a new thing. It's P waves and S waves. It's the return signal. You're going to need a flat plane because it's based on
You're
an
definitely gonna need
angle, a return angle, as you bounce it
Oh,
through the
dear.
ground. Yeah, that needs a flat Earth.
Well, given the times we live in, I think it's obvious the molten iron core has got an identity crisis and it's identifying in reverse mode.
You could make up anything. You could say it was made of candy floss, and you wouldn't. You could substantiate with the same standard of substantiation that they've substantiated it with, and nobody would know any different. Yeah, it's made of candy floss.
But let's get to the bottom line. If you're going to pre-assume a globe, then you're going to pre-assume everything else that you can put on that globe. And that's what they do. And no matter what, even when they cite how does that work on the flat Earth, which is like, excuse me, we're tearing down your globe, and you're saying, how does that work on the flat Earth? They're pre-assuming a globe that's not spinning, rather than a disk and the stars and the sun and the moon moving above it. They're never visualizing a motionless disk, equatorial plane, with the heavens moving. They always envision a globe that's stopped in its tracks. Well, how's that work? What?
Any more on the molten iron core? Okie dokie then. We're going to move on. So this video is called Brian Cox, The Multiverse and Life on Other Planets. Okay.
Yay.
So I haven't actually listened to this like most videos that are presented here, and we're just going to respond to it on the fly. So if everyone's cool, we're going to get into it. Everyone pop yourselves on mute, unless you've got something to add. Feel free if you have. Oh, why have I got no sound?
I thought it was the other one.
And it melts lead on the
something dangerous is going to happen.
Literally the moment I start playing the video. What, Neil? Unbelievable. We love Neil. Neil is so ace.
Sorry. Thought it was going to be a different video, that's all.
Damn New Yorkers.
What was it you said again,
I had
Neil?
played
You
a
were rumpus
freaking
by
video.
everyone else, including me this time. Go ahead.
Played a freaking video.
because Mercury is way too hot, Venus is horrendously hot, and 90 atmospheres pressure and sulfuric acid rain, it melts lead on the surface, right? So you're not going there. And the rest of them are made of gas.
Oh my
So you're
God.
not going there either.
Okay,
How
let's
does
start
he
with
know
that.
it rains lead?
Yeah. Well, I was going to start with his claim that some of them are made of gas, so you can't go there. So what does gas do?
It moves in all directions.
Right, it expands in all directions to fill the availability of volume that it has to fill. So if planets, little lights in the sky, were actually gas in a vacuum, what do you think they'd do?
It'd fill it.
They'd expand in all directions to fill the availability of volume, the space that it had to fill. That's the gas that they claim these little lights in the sky are. Utter nonsense. As for raining lead in places that they've never been before, again, totally made up nonsense.
I think he does do a switch. Sorry, Chuck, but I think he does say some planets are solid, but most of them are gas. I'm just wondering how he gets any primary evidence that it's raining lead.
There isn't any.
Just the first line. Mercury is too hot. What's Mercury?
A light in the sky.
Oh, how do we measure the heat of the light in the sky?
We don't.
Copy that.
So Mars is the only place beyond Earth that we could feasibly ever go with planets.
No, you can't travel to lights in the sky for the same reason that lights in the sky aren't gases not expanding into the area of volume that they've got to fill. For the same reason, the area of volume those gases would fill is the area that you'd have to traverse from the gas pressure we are actually breathing to reach Mars. So that would involve travelling through gas pressure that we have already into an area of volume that the gas isn't filling. That's the second law of thermodynamics violation journey to a light in the sky you say we can visit. No, we can't.
May I summarize so
Yep.
far? So he says that a lot of these planets are gases, and Mars is a planet that's not a gas, is where he's going. So if a lot of these planets are gases, and Earth has air pressure, gas pressure, and we're an open system, in order to go to Mars, we have to be an open system. We can't be a closed system. How in the world is it that the rockets, as you have said before, can go, but the gas that we breathe, the rockets just pass by and the gas waves at them and it stays without some kind of container?
It doesn't. That's the second law of thermodynamics violation. Entropy increase would take place. It's a law of nature. Gas would fill the space. We'd all be dead if there was a open system to traverse to get to the light in the sky called Mars. So, no, it's just nonsense from top to bottom. We're only 20 seconds in. Riddled. Hope that's not copywritten.
So, Brian, we're doing this episode of Minutes With very different from anything we've done before. We've put a survey out to the audience, asked them to send in all the questions they want to ask you.
Okay. So these are general public questions to Professor Brian Cox. Interesting concept. Cool.
What is the one fact about the universe that blows your mind the most?
There are a lot of things about the universe that I find it almost impossible.
Very appropriate style. So what blows your mind? The things that he will describe in the universe are only in existence in the mind's eye of the person describing them, because none of them are real. So having things that blow your mind is so appropriate, because that's what the heliocentric religion's all about, blowing your mind. Go on, whoever that was.
Can I say something real quick? He said facts. The guy asked, what facts? So I want to hear the facts.
Well, you also paused it where he said impossible. Can you just backtrack 3 seconds and play it? And you'll see how silly the statement he says is based on his usage of impossible.
What is the one fact about the universe that blows your mind the most?
There are a lot of things about the universe that I find it almost impossible to imagine. Well, actually impossible to imagine.
That's what it is, isn't it? It's just based on the imagination. Right, I'm glad I replayed that.
One's just the size and scale of it.
Given to you by Kepler, and an assumption of R for a heliocentric Earth in an orbit around the Sun, based on Al-Biruni's measurement of a geometric horizon that can't be seen, and then a superimposition of that R value by Christian Huygens onto Venus to apply Kepler's scaling.
I mean, in the piece of the universe we can see, there are something like, roughly, 2 trillion galaxies.
Maybe true. If you want to call lights in the sky galaxies, fine. No worries. If you zoom in on them and see that they're made of separate lights, and there's lots and lots of them, this number's arbitrary, but fine. Okay, no issue with that whatsoever. So quick shout out to Himsake, who just gives me a super sticker. Brilliant. Thank you very much.
We haven't counted them all, but that's an estimate based on surveys of the local universe.
Just an estimate? No, it's based on R values derived from geometric horizons by Al-Biruni, imposed onto Venus by Christian Huygens, and then the application of Kepler's third law with those scaling values to give you your guesses. That's all they are. This is meaningless nonsense.
Based on surveys of the local universe? What does that even mean, man?
It means they went out there with the tape measures. What do you want?
That means they went door to door and asked questions.
That's what it sounds like to me.
The local universe.
Yeah, either he means surveying, as in going out with tape measures, which they're definitely not doing, or surveying, as in going door to door to ask questions. Either way, you're not going to reify the universe into something that can be questioned, and they haven't taken tape measures out, so either way.
2 trillion, 2,000 billion galaxies. And each galaxy is...
Who cares? This is meaningless.
Let's say...
There's lots of lights in the sky. There you go, that was a much more concise summary, Cox.
Around the size of the Milky Way, some are bigger, some are smaller, but...
Bigger or smaller? No, based on Kepler. Based on our assumptions. Based on Christian Huygens superimposing R onto Venus.
Milky Way has 400 billion stars in it.
Again, who cares? Lots of lights in the sky.
It takes light over 100,000 years to...
Another R-based assumption for the speed of light. And Einstein's bastardization of gravity. No. You haven't got any R, you haven't got any gravity, and you don't know the speed of light. Based on many, 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 many assumptions.
Across a galaxy. And there are 2 trillion of them in a piece of the universe.
Again, back to peppering his nonsense with facts that you can verify. There's lots of lights in the sky, and light has got a speed based on my R assumption, and a heliocentric assumption, and an Einsteinian assumption, giving us this speed assumption. And giving us this scale, that the light would have to be travelling at that speed because of this scale that's been arbitrarily imposed based on an R. that we haven't got and cannot measure and cannot therefore impose on Venus and cannot therefore use to imply Kepler's third law of interplanetary motion in a heliocentric model.
We can see, and we're very...
It's okay. I was just going to say, it's okay. We can forgive him, right? Because he set it up completely at the beginning with, oh, let me go into things that are impossible, right? And now we're just listening to his story of these things that he thinks are happening but are impossible, his words.
Yeah. One last thing. When I first saw this, because I'm old enough to watch Carl Sagan, he's channeling Carl Sagan. He brings Carl Sagan up a few more times, so you can see he's a disciple of Carl Sagan. And the part that sounded like Carl Sagan was where this little thing on the little thing in this big thing, and we are nothing. And that's what Carl Sagan did, was just take away hope, take away everything, that we're insignificant. And that's the heliocentric model, as you'll see.
Right, and that's worth dwelling on. So while I don't have a grandiose idea about what I have become since finding out that I've been lied to about the nature of reality, one thing I do appreciate is that I'm not an insignificant speck of dust floating around in an ever-expanding vacuum that gas isn't filling. That's nonsense. But if you step away from it and look at it and go, hang on a second, that religion told me that I was a nothing, that I was unimportant and insignificant. Wow. Doesn't it make you raise an eyebrow at the very least?
Very sure that that piece that we can see is a small bit.
Pretty sure. Or, I won't go through it again, Kepler and Huygens and Al-Biruni.
Of what may be an infinite universe beyond.
Maybe. What, an infinite expanding gasless nothing, a vacuum with gas not filling it when there are little lights that aren't expanding into it?
We don't know, actually.
There we go. That sums it up nicely. You don't know, do you? So this entire, 1 minute diatribe of complete horse crap, summarised by we actually don't know? Yeah, I do know. What you've assumed to give you this vague idea of this nonsense that you really don't know, but you can state it quite clearly in terms of the distances and size and speeds of light. Yeah, we know where else all come from, though, don't we? You haven't detailed any of that. We have.
And I always say, don't get worried about that, because
that's a what's it called? Foreshadowing. So what he's doing is he's planting the seed. Don't get scared by this. I remember when I was in my early teens, it might have been earlier, it might have been in the late 80s, going to watch a movie and having the trailer for The Fly 2. And it said, don't be afraid. Be very, very, very afraid. And everybody in the audience laughed. They all thought it was funny. I don't know if that went over in the States, if it was the same for you guys, but here we thought that was very funny. Everybody in the audience thought that was hysterical. Don't be afraid. Oh, okay, I won't be. What's that you say? Be very afraid. That's what Cox is doing. Now, you don't need to worry about it, but the world could kill you at any moment. That's what's coming.
Because nobody can picture it. It is impossible to...
Go on.
No, I was going to say, he started off with facts, and then he says, we don't know.
We don't know, but there's no need to worry. But dun dun dun, comets and earthquakes and molten core, and we might stop and gravity might cease to exist and we might hit the sun and a planet might hit us. But don't worry about it.
To visualize the scale of the universe.
You don't have to visualize it, you have to apply Kepler.
So that's the first thing. I could then list a lot of more.
No, yeah, you don't visualize it, you apply Kepler.
But we'll stop there for now. But just the size and scale of it, I think,
is given to you by Kepler.
Is beyond imagination.
No, it's applicable with Kepler's third law of interplanetary motion, based on an R value derived by Al-Biruni's measurement of a physical geometric sphere edge horizon we cannot see and cannot measure, superimposed onto Venus.
There's been a lot of references to the multiverse and parallel universe in pop.
What are they? A load of old made-up shite that you're going to talk about, Cox, by any chance? I believe so.
Their culture lately. Do you think that something like this is a possibility?
So there are lots of multiverses, actually.
No, there are not. Multiverses? Absolutely not. Totally made-up nonsense. Completely theoretical. Definitely doesn't exist in physical reality. But he started his statement by saying there are loads of them. In physics? What's physics? What, physical reality? No, there aren't multiverses in physical reality. This is lies. Why would you say such nonsense about what occurs in physics? That's the physical. There aren't multiverses in the physical.
Actually, in physics, one of them is called the inflationary multiverse.
Total bollocks.
Which is, we have a theory.
Oh, really? So we have this thing, and then you start off describing it by saying we have a theory. In science, a theory comes after scientific validation by way of experimentation based on a hypothesis after you observed a phenomena you wanted to explain the cause of. That's what a theory is in science. He's starting off with theory. And what he means colloquially is, we've got a vague idea about this nonsense I'm about to spew, and here's me spewing it. It's a theory.
Of essentially what happened before the Big Bang.
Big Bang's just made up. Nobody went back billions of years to watch some first law of thermodynamics violation. Energy and matter cannot create or destroy themselves. So what, Big Bang? Energy creating itself from nothing? Simultaneously creating everything in the known existence from zero? No, that's a first law of thermodynamics violation.
Right, you have to be careful with the language.
Because that's all this is, just you talking. Meaningless nonsense, not physics, not theory.
So if you define the Big Bang really carefully...
If you define it carefully, no, definitions of things don't make them exist in physics.
As the time when the universe was very hot and very dense. And as I said, you can't argue with that because...
Yes, I most definitely can. There was a time, 1.11 millisecond after the start of the Big Bang, first law of thermodynamics violation, everything was very dense, before it exploded out to create everything in the known existence. No. No, it's a first law of thermodynamics violation that preceded that description, my friend. Definitely not.
Because we can see it, because we can look out into the sky.
Oh, we can we? We can see 65 billion years ago just by looking through a telescope. Smile, smile. No, we cannot. Telescopes aren't DeLoreans. They don't allow and facilitate time travel. They don't allow you to see back into the past either. Go ahead.
Well, he's backed up by Michelle Dollar, who says we could take a picture of the past, basically. Back when the universe was nothing but like hydrogen gas or something like that. Yeah, we could take a picture of that. That's her direct quote.
Yes, their claim is that the CMB, the cosmic microwave background radiation, is actually them seeing into the past. That's the remnants of the Big Bang. And that's as far as we can see. Why? Well, because that was what happened at the start. And that's as far as we can see, based on Einsteinian concepts and notions of travelling light with a time and a journey. I'm sorry, but that is not how light behaves. Just because a heliocentric model dictates that it's going to take a journey, it's like a little train on its way to you and takes a long time, meaning that when it arrives, it's actually like from a long time ago. Bollocks. Utter nonsense. That's not how light behaves.
Guy, our best theory of how the universe...
Best theory? No, theories based on scientific validation, based on hypotheses, based on observed natural phenomena you wanted to explain and did with the experiment, and then formed a theory. When he babbles my best theory, he means the best bullshit I've got to talk about this with. That's what he actually means.
Got into that state is that there was a time before that.
So what, a different explanation and a different story?
And it's called inflation. So the idea is the universe was there, in a sense, cold and empty and expanded.
So cold and empty means not there. But it was there in a sense that it was cold and nothing there, empty, i.e. nothing. So total contradictory nonsense doublespeak. Cold and empty doesn't mean everything in the known existence.
Expanding extremely fast.
So everything from nothing, cold and empty, that's nothing, to everything in known existence really fast. So what if you say the first law of thermodynamics violation really happened quickly? It ceases to be a first law of thermodynamics violation. No.
And that expansion slowed down and stopped. And the energy that was driving that expansion got
from here on in, this is just made up tosh.
Dumped into space, heated it up, and made all the particles out of which we're made. And that's what we call the Big Bang.
Yawn. Boring Cox with his first law of thermodynamics explanation thereafter.
So that's textbook. It's a textbook.
Textbook? So it's written down? Well, it's basically the Bible then, isn't it?
Theory called inflation.
So this theory was written down, therefore it's gospel.
It made predictions.
What is this?
Predictions? Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, what is this? How does he bring in the word inflation into it? Now, we all know what inflation is, but how does he try to bring that in?
Let me summarise. Inflation is a bullshit description of a cold, empty nothing turning into everything in the known existence. That would be inflating from nothing to everything. Getting from not just small, but non-existent to very big and everything. That's what inflation means in this context.
Cold and empty means no matter, but then all of a sudden, everything.
Yes. Yeah, this, by the way, if you're not following along, if you're new to this subject, this is your origin story for the globe. This utter tripe is the Earth sphere origin story. Suck it up.
Some of which have been tested.
So now he's using the words of science again. It made predictions. What's a prediction in science? Anybody? It's a hypothesis. A scientific prediction is a hypothesis. It predicts the cause of the effect. It's a suppositional statement that has both an affirmative and negative statement in it. If A, then B, being the positive assertion, supposition that you want to test. A causes B. B being the thing you're observing in nature that you want to know the cause of. A being the supposition that you're going to vary to see if it causes it. A causes B is half of a hypothesis, otherwise known as a scientific prediction. If A, not B, is a null. It's the antithesis of your prediction. It states that if you vary A, the thing you suppose causes the thing you're studying, B, then it won't cause B. You vary it, nothing happens. If A, not B. That's a full scientific prediction. If A, then B, or alongside, simultaneously in the supposition, if A, not B. So it can't be used to explain anything because it's got both as stated as a supposition. A will cause B and A won't cause B is in a hypothesis, otherwise known as a scientific prediction. His prediction, what, based on what? The theory? So we're going backwards. We're starting with a theory, bullshit description that he's made up on the spot, and now we're going backwards to the hypothesis, prediction. No. You've got it arse about face cocks. First step of the scientific method. Observe something happening you want to explain. Not something technological, because that was... Go on. Whoever ejaculated in the middle of my rant, go ahead.
Well, I'll go after Neil.
I was just going to say, he's being real crafty. He's using sciencey words, so people will believe him. He's very slick.
I was going to say that he assumes everything, and then after he assumes it with no proof, the story is laid over it, and he uses science terms, but the science he's using never proved his assumption.
Let's go backwards. Starts with a theory, which should be the explanation for the outcome of the experiment, but it's not. He's using a description and story that hasn't been validated by anything. Then he talks about his story, his theory, being used to make predictions. So we're going backwards in the scientific method, from theory to hypothesis. What next? The phenomena will come, undoubtedly.
Guys, nobody
So
that I
incredible.
know in my field uses scientific method. It's seat of the pants. It's leaps of logic. It's guesswork.
Michikaku, but with a peppering of scientific notions and vernacular alongside the guesswork. So he's talking about predictions. He's talking about theories. He's making it all sound very sciencey, whilst hijacking the actual method in the language. And he's saying, I've got to be careful about my language. What, careful that you don't get caught out in the absolute tripe that is going backwards through the scientific method, starting with the explanation and theory. It's an outrage, really. He's not a scientist, he's a pretender.
Predictions, actually, about the way that galaxies are distributed across the sky.
How the galaxies are distributed in the sky has already been established in your theory that's actually based on Kepler's third law of interplanetary motion, with a supposition of R based on a measurement that couldn't be taken from a geometric horizon, superimposed onto Venus by Christian Huygens.
Because they're not just random.
Not just random, I've just told you how they came to be. In the distances and sizes. It's starting with your story and moving back, making predictions with it. It's just nonsense.
If you look at the galaxies...
Maybe he should go talk to Hubble about how these things are distributed, because he didn't seem very comfortable with how they seem to be distributed. As a matter of fact, they said they need to stay away from that at all costs.
Right.
Interesting.
Because you can change anything in a story. If it hasn't got scientific validation behind it, that would be to say that it's empirical and will never change. You can change whatever you like in this nonsense.
They're in sort of flows and rivers of galaxies that cross the sky in a pattern called the cosmic web. And inflation predicted that.
I see. So your story about a first law of thermodynamics violation was basically a hypothesis, because it predicted something that you can see in the sky. So you can see it in the sky, there it is. You know why that's there? Nostradamus said it would be that way. All right. Well then, Nostradamus is right. He obviously predicted it that way. No, you're working backwards after looking at something and saying that your story that violates the first law of thermodynamics actually predicted this. When in science, a prediction's a hypothesis.
Before it was seen, actually. So it's an astonishing idea.
Amazing. And yet we've tracked the motions of the lights in the sky for absolutely centuries.
Theory has a kind of an extension called eternal inflation, which is that the inflation essentially goes on forever.
Wow, shocking. Yeah, what, the first law of thermodynamics violation that created everything from nothing will expand into the nothing that the gas isn't filling forever. Wow.
And it just stops in little patches. So you imagine the fabric of the universe, space.
The universe isn't a fabric. Yeah, that's an Einsteinian fourth dimensional concept.
Time, stretch.
No, you can't stretch the dimension of time in Einsteinian pseudo-Riemannian force space. Time isn't something that can be stretched like a fabric.
And then it slows down and stops in little patches.
No, you're not going to slow down time, which is the dimension you're describing, in Einsteinian pseudo-Riemannian force space.
Nathan.
And each one of the...
Yep.
Yeah, so we had the Big Bang because they say so, and it just went out and it created the universe. But it decided to stop for lunch, do a little patch, then go back to the same speed that it was launched at, stop and have a little lunch and deposit little universes? Is this where we're going?
Look, if you can violate the first law of thermodynamics, you can basically do whatever you like from that point forward, can't you? You want to stop in time? Maybe bend time as a fabric? No worries. Whatever.
Before you start, can I ask a question real quick? The guy asked if he had one fact about the universe that blows his mind. I haven't heard a fact yet. I've heard a bunch of stories.
Correct.
Those patches is basically a Big Bang and a universe, of which ours is one.
Just lots of first law of thermodynamics violations all happening at once, basically. Before your very eyes. Why? Well, because I said so.
So you end up with this sort of picture of an infinite fractal universe of...
No, you just got a picture of what you see in the sky, and then your bullshit descriptions to go alongside what we see in the sky. That's all we've got. Basically.
Of basically an infinite number of Big Bangs, and that's called...
No, definitely not. We haven't got infinite numbers of first law of thermodynamics violation Big Bangs happening in a sky vacuum with the gas that we're breathing not filling it. Definitely not.
The inflationary multiverse.
No.
And
how did that turn into suddenly being a multiverse? I mean, you're a reasonably well-crafted salesman when it comes to heliocentrism, but just dropping in a multiverse at the beginning and end of a description of the Big Bang, and also superimposing that Big Bang notion onto other lights in the sky, doesn't give you a multiverse.
No, he started with saying that there are many multiverses, and the first one he started describing was the inflationary multiverse.
I see. So there are many different types of horses, including unicorns. Now I'm going to describe a horse. Therefore unicorns. Therefore multiverses. Like, what he thinks that giving his ham-handed description of bending fabrics of space-time and first law of thermodynamics violation, everything in terms of matter expanding out from a cold, empty nothingness, described as an inflation multiverse, makes multiverses real. That's what he thinks. All right, crap.
that, because if you say, why is our universe the way that it is?
Why is our universe the way that it is?
Why are the laws of nature such
The ones that you violated twice, first and second law?
that life can exist,
Well, they wouldn't have life existing if we were living in a vacuum, because all of the gas we're breathing would be in it and we wouldn't be breathing it, and no life would ever have been achieved based on laws of nature that you just mentioned. So what, you just think by saying them, dropping them into the conversation, people will think that you're adhering to them when you're violating them? It's a bloody outrage.
example.
Maybe,
What?
I was going to say, maybe in an inflationary multiverse, you have inflationary laws of nature. So they might not be the same laws of nature we got.
It's just hijacking the terminology. He wants you to think that he's adhering to scientific sounding terminologies like laws of nature. Now, number one, laws of nature aren't science. But number two, he's violating every one of them. They're just descriptions of things that happen always. I.e. gas fills space always. Oh, meanwhile, this light in the sky is a gas in a space, not filling it. But the laws of nature, blah, 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 blah. People will think he's adhering to them because he said it.
Well, the answer might be that all possible combinations of all the laws of nature exist.
Sorry, possible combinations of the laws of nature. They're just laws. They're descriptions of things that happen always. They're not like, maybe in this multiverse we'll adhere to this law of nature. No, there aren't other multiverses where laws of nature don't apply. We experience what we experience and we can describe it with laws of nature because stuff happens always.
Yeah,
in
but
inflation.
if there were other multiverses with different laws of nature, then he could bullshit like this indefinitely. He could keep postulating things like this indefinitely, and that's one premise. The another thing that's annoying me is he's contradicting himself even with his own inflationary, because the universe doesn't fit an inflationary model. It has accretion disks. It's not and they also have to have all of the laws of physics ignored for the first second or so after the Big Bang. Nothing can explain distribution in their model in a way that allows inflation. You have to have hyperinflation just to get it to the point that you can spread the stuff across 2 dimensions, and they can't explain why we don't go the full 3 in their inflationary model.
Right. And the stuff you're describing is the cold, empty nothing that becomes all of the stuff in existence, right?
Yeah, but you know this cosmic web bit as well, what he's been waffling on about? This is supposed to be galaxies, which are a bit like a neural network, which are interlinked with gaseous connections. So it looks like a neural net, but each dot's a galaxy, and each line between these things, these interconnecting lines in the galaxy, are apparently gas clouds.
No way.
We got
No way. Like in
neurons
Futurama, when Bender gets thrown out into space and talks to God as a giant gaseous cloud. Like that?
You got it. You got it exactly, yes.
Oh my God. Go on, Chocolate.
I'll just
go on.
show you on. If you want, I'll just show you on screen literally what he's talking about, and it will remind you of Bender. So these are just the different imitations of it, yeah?
Someone's talking to God?
I get what you're saying. It kind of looks like if you were to... What's that dye that they put into people's bloodstream so they can scan their brain? What's that called?
Iodine?
I don't know if that's the one they put so they can do a brain scan. And in any event, when they do maybe there isn't any liquid. But anyway, the point is when they do a brain scan, it kind of looks like this. And they're describing synapsins, I think they're called, firing, and the neurons that connect them together. That's what they're saying this looks like, right?
Yeah.
What a load of old bollocks.
That's about the most scientific thing I've heard today.
Did you have something else, Tent?
No, I was going to say it looks like neurons and synapse and action potential stuff.
So what? Oh, it looks like it. Wow. I found the face of Jesus in my loaf of bread.
Stationary multiverse. So then it's not surprising there are universes that permits things like us to exist because...
Sorry, the universe did not give permission for me to exist, right? The universe isn't God. That is basically what he's saying. There's no 2 ways about it now, is there? Giving permission?
That's correct.
What the hell? Go on, 10th.
Well, they're all atheists, so there is no God, and so it's matter. Matter is God, so the universe is God. And then Michelle Thaler, the Rock is my cousin. I mean, give me a break. So we're all part of the universe. The universe is me, so I'm God. This is the New Age religious side of this.
I'm kind of glad you said that because I was thinking about that before. As whenever we talk about the Big Bang, like a question to the atheists, but why do you believe something that a Jesuit priest put out there? Just wondering. Just a guess.
Yeah, and that explains everything. That explains why they're hiding flat Earth and pushing this heliocentric nonsense, because they want to keep God from people.
Well, the heart of the ideas and notions and quote-unquote theories of heliocentrism have come from the Roman Catholic Church. So that's where this originates, all of these nonsense ideas. You know, when he talks about the scale in values and sizes, that's come from a Jesuit priest directly. So, you know, if you don't know your own origins of the stories, and within the story, just to address that as well, us being made of rocks is part of this narrative, so I might as well cover it, which is to say that in the heart of a dying star, right, so stars that he's saying are little big bangs, the reason he's saying that is back to Michelle Thaler and her saying her cousins are rocks. Well, why? Well, because parts of you, let's say a tiny amount of your body is made of gold. Well, gold, according to the heliocentric narrative, is made as a star loses its life. As it comes to the end of its life cycle, it's imploding. It's collapsing in on itself, forming heavier and heavier elements, like gold, like platinum. And at the very end of its life, it explodes, or what they call a supernova. Now, that process distributes all of these elements that are essential for making life throughout the heliocentric universe. Now, when they arrive on other planets and eventually gather together randomly in a puddle to create complex life, according to their narrative, that was only possible. You only had the permission because of the star, the matter being created in its heavy element for you to utilize it in whatever process you need gold for. That's only possible because the universe gave you permission, and because you are directly related to the rocks and the stars that were created in this process that's been described now by Cox. Anything else?
Because every possible universe exists in the inflationary multiverse.
No, we've only got what we experience. That's it.
And that's a well-supported...
Well-supported theory. Theories don't need support. They're empirically validated by experimentation. That's what gives you a theory. It comes after empirical science has been performed. A well-supported theory, you mean there's lots of it written down. Lots of Jesuit priests agree.
Theory. It's a theory, so this is not the same as saying there was a Big Bang.
Oh, right. This is totally different to a Big Bang, even though it's basically the same story, but put into a universe that violates the first and second law of thermodynamics. So it's not really the same as the Big Bang. When we just describe it in our universe, it just violates the first and second law. Over in that multiverse universe, the first and second law, they're not really relevant over there. Maybe they're going to do that. They'll just package up the Big Bang total nonsense of heliocentrism and slip it into a different multiverse and say, yeah, actually, we were wrong. What we thought was our multiverse, with first and second law of thermodynamics violations, sky vacuums and things not filling them, that's actually this other multiverse. Yeah, we're flat here in our multiverse. But just don't be scared. But there could be a wormhole between the two. Don't be scared.
Which we know, this is kind of, what's a theory? It's a guess, basically.
No. A colloquial theory is your general vague notion of things. Scientific theory is backed by scientific validity. So you've got an experiment. And then you've got your theory. But for you, it's just kind of a guess.
Yeah, could you repeat that for those who believe this clown? Could you, like, go back a few seconds so we can say that again, please?
A well-supported theory. It's a theory. So this is not the same as saying there was a Big Bang, which we know. This is kind of, what's a theory? It's a guess, basically. But it is a theory that in its simplest form has made predictions that have subsequently been verified. And we could go on then. There's the so-called many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics, which is more kind of Marvel film kind of.
See, now is to move on to hijacking another actual science, that's quantum mechanics, validated by scientific experimentation. and incorporating it into his multiverse bullshit. Go ahead.
Hang on.
After he'd got you to tacitly accept that we know that the Big Bang happened, that was all right, Rumpus line. Drop the bombshell and move on with waffle, leaving that statement unchallenged. We know.
Why is he so arrogantly smiling about this? Like, does he really think he's actually performing well right now?
Adam spotted it perfectly. Yeah, that's right, Adam. What he's doing is he's saying, I know all of the problems that might come up in debate with my heliocentric Big Bang description. So if I take that description and put it into a different place, where the first and second law don't apply, and I disclaim that, and then describe it exactly the same as the Big Bang in many ways, just have a few more happening in lights in the sky, and then at the end say, it's not the Big Bang, but the Big Bang still exists, and then move on. If anybody challenges the nonsensical assertions of the Big Bang, he says, no, what I was just describing wasn't the Big Bang. That would take another 20 minutes to go into. What I described was happening in a different multiverse. Therefore, all of your objections don't apply. Let's move on, knowing that the Big Bang definitely still existed.
Good catch, Adam.
Yeah, very good catch. Quick shout out
He
to...
also...
Hold on,
Oh,
just
go
one
on.
sec, 10th. Shout out to Retro Bill. It says, fantastic breakdown, boys. I'm a big fan of the treatment format, and this is already one of your best yet. Oh, wow. Well, thank you very much for smashing the super chat. Really appreciate the support and the kind words. Go ahead, Tent.
Yeah, well, basically the same thing, but a different way of looking at it was he started off with the facts, and then he said it's impossible to imagine it, though. And then he said we don't know actually. And then now he says, well, the Big Bang is facts, and these theories work with our predictions, which is not the same thing as a theory in the scientific method, but just a theory in the sense of I guess, maybe, but no facts supporting it.
Yeah, he juxtaposes that with the Big Bang and uses the words which we know, which, you know, because he said that means we know and therefore have established empirically that obviously definitely exists, right? Sure.
Multiverse, where so quantum mechanics it's a probabilistic theory.
No, it's not based on probability. It's based on science. It's based on experiment. It's based on having a validatable cause and effect hypothesis. That's a scientific prediction that's been through the method and had an experiment performed to give you the empirical outcome. It's not probabilistic at all.
Right,
Your version will be. Go on, Adam.
So we've got a conflation here. Multiverse, more marvelly, and then so quantum mechanics, which is again valid, you see, but he's linked the two as if quantum mechanics is somehow substantiating multiverses. So quantum mechanics is a probabilistic theory, blah 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 blah. Yeah, he's again switcherooed to something we do recognise is real, and now he's going to conflate those two and use quantum mechanics to explain, I suggest, how a multiverse or his next explanation of the universe will work, but validated with that lovely word quantum mechanics, which I don't have a problem with. As far as I'm aware, cannot postulate multiverses in of quantum mechanics of itself. Theoretical quantum mechanics might.
Adam, like the word science is tossed around?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I
exactly.
saw in the movie Ant-Man that quantum mechanics does do multiverses, so...
Yeah, in their bastardization of it, in the same way they can talk about some stuff that's science, they'll also talk about actual science that's been validated through experiment and incorporate it into their nonsense stories. Again, greasing the skids of their just so stories, not actually implying that they're using anything that's genuinely related to quantum mechanics. It isn't. They just say it to grease the skids.
Well, a quantum coin, I call it. And the quantum
coin, something you've made up.
Coin can be, it doesn't have to be heads or tails.
This is just a coin. Yeah? It's not a quantum coin. It's just a coin. You've just described it with this scientific sounding title. So you can describe what a coin does and then infer that somehow this has got scientific validity when you impose quantum onto multiverse.
It can be heads and tails.
Heads and tails, yeah, that's what a coin consists of.
It can be mixed up. can be both heads and tails at the same time.
Like a coin is, it's got one on each side.
You might have heard of Schrodinger's cat.
Schrodinger's cat isn't the same as flipping a coin. A Schrodinger's cat would be the notion that if you put a cat in a cupboard and you can't see whether or not a cat's in there, whether or not the cat is alive or dead is in a quantum state in its description. Well, that doesn't mean anything in terms of the quantum actually being validated by scientific experimentation. Yeah? Schrodinger, this notion of quantum states, is just a simplified, dumbed down description. That's all it is. It has got absolutely nothing to do with heliocentrism or multiverses. None whatsoever.
I think it's a philosophical concept. It's got Schrodinger's cat philosophy. But more importantly, you see there, he's using that, as I said, he's using the term quantum, and it's as tentacles. It's empiricism that you would associate with quantum mechanics to reify a quantum coin. Now, that's going to be left to our imagination with our knowledge of quantum mechanics to imagineer on his behalf what a quantum coin is. Well, he's not described it really, other than it can be heads and tails. There's an acceptance there because we can visualize that in terms of our understanding of quantum mechanics, and then he's using that knowledge to build his bullshit. He forces you. It's good. It's a bit NDT. He's forcing you to fill in his hypothesis or his theory. Sorry, in this case, of what's going on.
But it's using what bugs me the most, Adam, is just a quick shout out. Hold on one sec. Shout out to Retro Bill, who says, "How fitting that Davy Jones lookalike is here to remind us that we came from monkeys." Thank you very much for the super chat. Really appreciate the support. He's not using the science of quantum mechanics when he describes this, right? What he's actually doing is he's using part of a phenomena. So what part of quantum mechanics is he cherry picking from or dipping into the bag of to make himself sound smart? Well, he's dipping into the bag of diffraction. That's what he's actually doing. So when you've got an interference pattern in the double slit experiment, right? Before you have wave function collapse, which is the thing that they actually want to know what caused it. Why did that happen? Right? That's what they want to know. Before that, you have light interference or diffraction. Now, what does that mean? Okay, it means that you fire one photon towards the double slit, and it's going to either go through one or the other, and you don't know which. Now, when that happens, it can hit on the wall behind, let's say, in many different places. It doesn't just go through one slit and then hit behind the slit, or go through the other slit and hit behind the other slit. It doesn't do either of those things. It could go through and hit off to the far left, off to the far right, right in the middle, a little bit off to the left, a little bit off to the right. That's a diffraction pattern. Now, that means that when you fire each photon, there is a level of unpredictability to where the photon will end up. So it's not like you know the cat's alive or you know the cat's dead. You don't know that it will always go to the same position next photon you fire. Yeah? That's a probability distribution. And that probability distribution in mathematical terms is called a wave function. It's just a way of describing what I've just described in physical terms. Firing a bit of light doesn't even have to be a slit, a pin. It's going to give you a choice of either side. And then it goes off all the way to the left, all the way to the right, all the way to the middle, right off to the left, right off to the right. It does that, right? And to describe that process is how he's linked it back to Schrodinger. In terms of that, you don't know which. There's you don't know whether or not the cat's alive or the cat's dead, or you don't know if it's going to land on a head or a tail. Yeah? But that's it. That's the only connection to the actual science pre-phenomena explanation in quantum mechanics. That's what he's appealing to. And he's done it through the philosophy of Schrodinger.
We have a probability distribution for the behavior of light, as they said. What we don't have, and what he's conflating, is a probability distribution of whether the cat will be alive or dead. It's a philosophical concept. So to link the two, and that's what this is, the crowbarring, is to link the empiricism associated with quantum mechanics and the behavior of light and that which path mechanism and the breakdown of the wave function, all of that, which is demonstrable. He's now going to take that word quantum and imply it as if this philosophical concept is applicable to how he views the universe. It is fantastic bullshittery.
Not all wave function or not all probability distributions are wave functions, though. It's just in this case, it's called a wave function. It's the name of it because of the pattern of the distribution. That is all.
Well,
there's no waves involved.
It only becomes a wave function if you describe it as a wave function. If you break down the probability distribution in a mathematical term, and then you present it in those maths, then it's a wave function.
Exactly.
But that's just our description. Quick shout out to JMels24, who says, "Great show, very informative. Thank you very much for the super chat."
Right.
Should really be ending now, but I'm on a roll. You guys want to carry on a little bit longer? We've got 140 people watching.
4 more hours.
It's a name. That was my point. It's a name that we give it, and it's based off mathematics, the mathematical interpretation of it, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, that's all.
Yes, that's precisely correct.
Yeah, Nathan, continue. Make it one segment for a show. It's a good one.
Well, people seem to enjoy it, and they're giving me money, so I'm going to carry on. Yes.
There is one thing I'd like to add, and that's Heisenberg's uncertainty principle here. What he's describing to manifest his world with quantum mechanics, by using quantum mechanics, means he's in complete contradiction to all of his Einsteinian mathematics he's also using because of the uncertainty principle.
I doubt he even really grasps what quantum mechanics is in general. I think he's just grabbing the colloquial quantum mechanics sci-fi idea that's floating out there, right? Because people don't understand quantum mechanics. They don't understand the roots of it. They really don't.
No.
You have to explain it again and again and again before some of them might get it. So yeah.
Because there's nothing righteous in truth. There's nothing righteous in having empiricism and truth for those who want to deceive and have power and control over the world. There's nothing in it for them. That's why, even though quantum mechanics has directly influenced our lives in the modern times, with actual technology being developed from it, it will still be bastardized and denied and promoted through the search engines by those who want to prop up their religious belief in heliocentrism or parallel universes in this instance. They will be the ones who promote it. Oh, really? Oh, no, that's not true. If it's real science, no. Who are we covering? We're covering Cox. What's he doing? He's hijacking these terms. He's the one in the mainstream. He's completely wrong. He's just propping up his religion, but he's the one at the forefront of what we as Western world people get. And why? Well, because he has foraged through with an affirmation bias, seeking out that which will confirm the ideas, be it validated through science or not, with his own religious belief. Now, somebody somewhere at some point, you were saying Carl Sagan earlier, but it doesn't matter who, will have an article that links bullshitium with quantum mechanics. And you get quantum bullshitium. That's what he's talking about. And it's promoted in the heaviest, highest possible way. Now, that stifles the progression of humanity in the most literal way. It stops it. Because what you're, as a general Joe Normie, getting is this. You're not being told how quantum mechanics actually works. You're getting told that a theory, which isn't, a best guess and idea that we don't know about, works with this actually scientifically validated term I'm now going to throw into the mix. And that's the mainstream. That's what you get. No wonder the whole world's dumbed down.
And it's both alive and dead until you observe it or interact with it in some way, and then you find out which one it is. But before you looked at it, or before you interacted with it, it was both.
What is he babbling about? No, not before you looked at it or interacted with it. He doesn't understand quantum mechanics, does he, Adam? You can interact with a diffraction pattern all you like. It doesn't make a scrap of difference. Just let this ad play out. It's unskippable.
He's making it literal out of the mathematics. So he's basically applying physicality assumption bias on math.
No, that's not what he's doing.
No, he's saying it goes. He's saying it goes through both slits.
Right.
Okay, that's his analogy. It's alive and dead. No, that's not quantum.
Yeah, it doesn't understand the basic principles behind it. It doesn't. It's not Schrodinger's cat. It doesn't. In the cat example, the cat is not both dead and alive. You just don't know which one. Now, the concept of it being simultaneously in existence in both states isn't actually true. Now, the notion of the light that I described earlier going through a double slit, one photon gets fired and then goes through a slit. He's saying, well, if you interact with it, somehow you'll have an influence of it. Absolutely not. The independent variable in that experiment, that's the double slit experiment, is knowledge of the which path. That's knowledge of which path the light went through. Now, when you know, that's knowledge, which path, that's the independent variable in that experiment, you cause wave function collapse. That's from not knowing where it's going to go, not simultaneously being at point A and point F, but not knowing which point it will arrive at before it's fired, to knowing, based on knowledge of which path, independent variable in the double slit experiment, it will arrive behind slit 1 because I know it went through slit 1. When you don't know which slit it goes through, you can look at it and interact with it all you bloody like. You'll still get a diffraction pattern. It's only when you have knowledge of which path, independent variable in that experiment. He doesn't have the slightest idea what quantum mechanics is. He doesn't know what he's talking about.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, how is that no? You always say no right after I insert something. I was right. It is a physicality assumption-based mistake of literalizing the mathematical probability, right? Which is purely theoretical, not actually particles splitting up in two, which is what he was saying. Why are you rumpusing
He's not. Just
me?
stop. He's saying it exists in both states. He's saying when the light goes through the double slit, it exists at point 1 and point 5. No, it does not. You just don't know which point it will arrive at. He's saying it exists simultaneously in both states. That's not true.
That's literally what I'm describing.
No, you're not.
Yeah, I am.
Okay.
It existing literally in both things at the same time. That's a physical assumption about it. When it's a mathematical approach, that's where the whole idea of it being in two places, that's mathematical based on the patterns that they approached it with.
If I'm wrong, I'll
he's
apologise.
making it
Hold on,
literal.
Adam. Even in the mathematical description, it doesn't exist in both states as far as I'm concerned. Therefore, Arwin's wrong. If I'm incorrect, I'll just concede now if you tell me I'm wrong. In the maths description, does it exist in both states?
In math?
I'm asking Adam.
Or am I hearing that coming out of your mouth, Nathan?
In the maths, yeah. You're saying, well, no, it's a physical assumption bias because he's describing it in the maths as existing in both states. And I'm saying, no, it isn't described in the maths as existing in both states. That's why I said you're wrong. But Adam might correct me and I might be wrong.
As I said, in quantum mechanics, it's a probability distribution. So it's not described as anywhere until you want to see where it is. That's when it's reified or becomes reality. In the Schrödinger cat, like I say, this is not quantum mechanics. It's philosophy, isn't it? It's a thought experiment fundamentally. So in the thought experiment, the cat exists and doesn't exist at the same time within the thought experiment. That's not to say it possibly could, and that in a quantum sense, it possibly could, because this is a separate thought experiment, which is trying to mix the two up, which is why I said no. The light does not go through both slits, which is what he's claiming implicitly within the Schrödinger's cat thought experiment, yeah? Because within that, it is simultaneously alive and dead, and you can only confirm and you only force the outcome by lifting the lid. But that's
That's right. That's when it becomes actual. So how
No.
is your explanation different from mine, other than that you're using a little bit more refined description for it? How is it different? Why are you saying yes to Adam and no to me, Nathan?
Maybe you're not making yourself clear. I didn't think you were saying that. So if you're saying the same thing as me, that in Schrodinger's cat, it exists in both their alive and dead state, but in quantum mechanics, it doesn't exist in in all the possible places. Because remember, there's the whole probability distribution that the photon can exist in. This is Heisenberg,
Right.
isn't it?
It's probability, so it's not about actual being. It's about what could be, and then how are you going to arrange what patterns could roll out.
No.
But nothing is literally real. So as soon as somebody says it literally exists in both places, then they're reifying the chance percentile insight into literally physically being.
Okay.
That was my point, and that's the same point you're making.
I'm not sure.
Let's move on.
So
We'll do this all day.
I'm saying it doesn't physically exist in all the possible states for the photon, but the cat exists in both possible states, alive and dead, within the thought experiment.
Fine. So I'll concede. In context, if he's talking about the cat, which he isn't, he's talking about both simultaneously, then I'm wrong. In talking about actual quantum mechanics, then I'm right when I say you're wrong, because nothing's existing in two states at the same time. But it is in his description which is wrong, and I'm saying it's wrong, and you're saying, yeah, he's reified it into a physicality when he says that there's two things in existence. Therefore, you're right. Can we move on?
Exactly.
Can we move on?
I understand the misinterpretation then.
Hold on.
Okay.
Who's asking? Somebody from Discord, was that?
I was just wondering if I could have a quick question before we move on.
Go ahead.
This is the place where I'm stuck also in asking, what part does mathematics and things like concept play in natural science?
They don't ever.
So this discussion that we've just had, it should be about natural science.
Correct.
Yet it's about things like wave functions that are mathematical concepts. A
Correct.
wave function does not exist outside of mathematics.
That's correct.
Yet
What Cox is doing, Humble, is he's taking the maths that's used to describe phenomena in science and only ascribing it to thought experiments when juxtaposing those thought experiments without phenomena and without science onto his multiverses. That's what he's doing. So when we are taking apart his quote-unquote quantum descriptions, they're sod all to do with quantum mechanics at all. Now, we might be peppering in corrections about quantum mechanics, which might lose the audience's track. I'm sorry.
If I could just, can I just read you something? Did I hear QE being on?
No.
Can we finish Brian Cox, please?
Oh, sorry. I thought I was talking about something that was being discussed. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's been discussed for the last like 15 minutes, and maybe you could wait until we're done with Brian Cox, and QE will still be here.
It's confusing because we're saying the word it's fine. The reason Humble's asking is because it's on a subject he's trying to find out more information about, which is quantum mechanics. The problem is that this isn't an educational bit about quantum mechanics in the slightest. We haven't discussed any quantum mechanics.
But it has. Yeah. Oh, sorry. I thought we were talking all about quantum mechanics.
No. Let me correct you.
Bad.
No. What we're talking about is Cox using these words and trying to break down how he's superimposing these words in with his description to try and make them make sense. It's taking a long time because we're unpacking bastardizations of words that aren't relevant in what he's saying and then breaking them down in terms of how he's imposing them into what he's saying. This is definitely not, although we've said quantum mechanics lots of times, a quantum mechanics discussion. That's not what we're doing. It's just... it's like saying... To break it down one step further back, when a fundy on the heliocentric side starts talking about the Cavendish experiment, and we start unpacking how it's not an experiment because it doesn't conform to the scientific method, Now, in a debate and discussion about Cavendish, pulling apart Cavendish and the claims Cavendish has for the heliocentric model, you wouldn't call that a science discussion. Even though at various points you'll say, well, there's no natural phenomena. There's not enough information in it to pick out a juicy chunk of detailed data about quantum mechanics from this discussion. It's just pulling apart nonsense from Cox. He just happens to say those words like heliocentrists say experiment when they talk about Cavendish. See what I mean?
Just to address that, I think that's kind of what I've been saying. If you listen to what he's saying, he's throwing in the word quantum. He's implying it. It's like they use the word science. Yeah. And then he's going on into his thought experiments, which aren't supported with quantum mechanics. The Schrodinger's cat one is a good example. Yeah. How he's trying to use your knowledge of quantum mechanics and how you accept that as empiricism science backing it for its conclusions with his conclusions about the universe and multiverses. He's about to go on to his quantum coin, isn't he? And in one universe it'll land heads, in another one it'll land tails, and in some universes it'll land on its exactly on the side. So these multiple quantum outcomes, as he's trying to do, he's using the word quantum and the empiricism of that to try and bolster this claim of multiverses, and that in another universe the coin lands on in another way, and that's an acceptable philosophy of the construct of reality, that everything has another multiverse where all outcomes are possible. Why is he doing that? It's a mathematical description he's building.
But isn't that the point? The fact is that mathematics, if he can justify the use of mathematics in connection with these wave functions and say that that is a legitimate thing that we can then describe as collapsing in order to come to a conclusion, math is an integral part of that process.
That's not what he's doing.
There is such a thing as superposition.
That isn't what he's doing.
Sorry, go.
He's not describing wave function collapse. He's just describing wave function. Now, when you say, oh, well, it's just a mathematical... Right. My bad. When he's just describing a mathematical concept, yeah. The mathematical description is like saying, well, you can't say it's relevant when it's described in Spanish. It, in this case diffraction patterns, are described mathematically as wave functions. It doesn't mean that you have to describe them mathematically as a wave function. They are just light on a wall in a broken up pattern. Interference pattern. Like when you see light with interference, that's all this is. The fact that it's described with wave functions neither in nor there, the fact that the phenomena being studied on the path of discovery for light was wave function collapse, is in no way, shape or form, in any way at all, been referenced by Cox. He hasn't got to anything sciencey, anything scientifically validated in quantum mechanics. He's just talked about an idea from Schrodinger of the notion of two things being in existence at once, because he's got a concept of multi-dimensions that have one with a coin landing heads, one with a coin landing tails. Therefore, both outcomes exist simultaneously when you toss the coin. No, they don't. It's just a coin with two heads, with two sides. Doesn't mean anything in terms of having two universes. And saying that because Schrodinger's cat can describe the idea of opening the cat and knowing, that's akin to knowledge of the witch path. Again, I'll say it once more. Just because we're describing some of the things in quantum mechanics doesn't mean this is a quantum mechanics lesson. It isn't.
Right, he's just physicalizing the math, reifying it into a physical thing.
Correct.
And that is completely wrong because it isn't at all.
Yeah, good description, Arwin. Well said. He's going backwards in this too. So you see something happening and go, I'm going to describe that in Italian. Or I'm going to describe it in French or English or maths. It doesn't matter. It's just describing something with maths. He's doing it the other way around. He's taking the mathematical convention, superimposing a misapprehension of that, which has a science term, and then working his way back from that. So he's doing it the other way round, like he did with, what was it? He did backwards, the scientific method earlier. Starting with a theory, going backwards to predictions, aka hypotheses. That's what he's doing here also.
Okay, so is this term collapse of the wave function a legitimate scientific term?
Yes, it's a phenomena, something happening that occurs in nature.
Okay.
Yes, the
So
fact
does
that it's
that-
described wave function collapse is interference stopping being interference. So in terms of the double slit, you fire the light and you don't know which path it's going through. And it goes off to the left, goes off to the right, goes into the middle, goes a little bit off to the left, goes a little bit off to the right. Right, that's what's happening. Then you put a slit detector, aka a camera, over one of the slits. And as the particle's fired, the detector can see, and obviously you've got to be able to acquire this knowledge personally, you as an individual, the knower. When you know which path that light goes through, the diffraction pattern ceases to exist. It goes where you would expect. If you throw a ball through a door in a straight path, you expect it to hit the wall on the other side of the door when it goes through the door. What you don't expect is you throw the ball through the door and it flies off at a 70-degree angle. You don't expect that to happen. Or a 20-degree angle when it hits the door. Why? Well, because there's two doors that are much, 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 much further away than you can see. And as you throw it down the really long, I don't know, field, and it gets to the door, it goes off miles to the left or miles to the right. That's all we're describing with wave function. The description of the interference pattern. That's all it is. And that's all Cox has used with Schrodinger. The idea of it being one or the other isn't comparable to wave function. It's comparable to... Go on.
They
It's
try
confusing
with
the
the term
issue.
superposition to conflate the two. So with the cat or with I think Einstein refers to a keg of gunpowder. At some point, it's both exploded and unexploded. So this is and then when the observer comes in, this is where they try to make the quantum link. Where an observer is looking at the wave function collapse, they kind of conflate the two things that in this hypothetical thought experiment where the cat's both alive and dead, or the gunpowder is either exploded or unexploded, it's in both of those states until observed, apparently. And then a decision makes. So it either just blows up or the cat's dead, you know what I mean? Or it doesn't blow up and the cat's alive. So it's that link there, this superposition collapse that they're trying to conflate with wave function collapse in quantum.
Yeah, but I even think that it's just
function,
it's another form of math, really. It's just not a deduced pattern, right? And then involvement with that. It is the conception. It is about whether you know whether something has happened. In reality, physical reality, I can guarantee you it's one or the other that happened to the cat. It's just what you know about it could be either. That is all. It's still conceptual. It's either dead or it's alive. You just don't know. That's the difference. It's still conceptual.
Yeah, it's just a thought experiment. There's nothing in reality that's experimentable with it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, you can test afterward whether it's...
I guarantee if you put 100 cats in 100 boxes with poison in them, yeah, leave it for a short while, the cats will be dead. Yeah. This is the reality of the situation, of why it's a thought experiment. It doesn't work in reality. It's a thought experiment about the point before you open the box, before you can observe it. Could there possibly be different outcomes? Is the cat alive?
It is an experiment.
But so it's about consciousness, about your knowing what's the case.
It's about what you're prepared to imagine. It's just a thought experiment. It's not based in reality. It contradicts reality. Will deny it as an experiment.
Hold on.
So it's
Adam
literally
and Arwin.
a conceptual.
Okay, Adam and Arwin, hold on one second. Go ahead, AI.
It proves in the first instance that in order for anything to exist, there must be a knower. In essence of the Berkeleyan overmind, which is how they ground all of these phenomena. Not materialists, but anybody with any rational sense. So what they're basically saying is that everything exists as an information system. The problem is they don't want to attribute that information system to a first cause mind. They want to have the mind follow the material explanation, just like Cox did, where he worked retroactively.
Exactly.
Now, I do have to say something quick to Humble, because he seems confused about this repeatedly, is that the diffraction pattern and the discrete pattern occurs at the plate. Okay, it is a physical imprintation on the receptor plate. It's not mathematical in any way, shape, or form. When you do it in scenario A, there's one pattern on the plate. You do it in scenario B, there's a completely different pattern on the plate. The math is just a way of describing those patterns, an explanation underlying. But the fact remains that when you have knowledge of the witch path, the discrete pattern on the plate changes.
So something, when we use the term the collapse of the wave function, that is a legitimate scientific term. We agree on that.
No. It's just a maths term
We
for
don't
something that
agree
you've
on that.
observed. It's not. It doesn't become a scientific term just because you've described something you're about to study. It's a mathematical term.
Oh, okay. Okay, thank you. So then that phenomenon then is not a real acceptable natural scientific phenomenon.
Yes, any phenomenon, anything that occurs in nature is scientifically validatable. In other words, if something's happening...
But it's not occurring in...
Yeah, it is.
It's just the name. The wave function is the name to describe it. It isn't literally the phenomenon. The phenomenon is the collapse of it that is named a wave function.
We move on to
There is a
Cox.
phenomenon.
We've
The
spent
wave
25
function
minutes on
itself
this.
is not.
It's not. This is
like,
this is the most convoluted,
Sorry, go ahead.
useless
Yeah, go.
explanation for quantum mechanics ever, because it's in between and interdispersed between Cox's bastardization of it. We're right off the rails now. We just need to have a proper conversation about quantum mechanics when we're not pulling apart Cox, who's not using anything directly relatable other than the words to quantum mechanics.
He's just trying to clarify the understanding of the wave function, right? The wave function is not a phenomenon. The wave function collapse is the phenomenon. That's it.
Right. And in terms of where we see that, we see it always. It's the standard. Yeah? Typically speaking, we don't see light diffraction. Yeah? That's not the norm. Normally, we just see light as it is. If a light beam travels through a gap, it just hits the other side. Exactly as you'd expect. That's how light presents itself. Always. Right? But do we have light diffraction? Oh, yes, we definitely do. It's definitely a phenomenon that they can study and have. And that path has led them to the scientific validation that gives us quantum mechanics, starting with the double slit experiment. We move on now. So glad I stayed live for 20 minutes for that discussion. I'm sure the 120 people decreasing ever so slowly really enjoyed it too.
Painful as it was, I think the point of distinction we were trying to make with what Cox is doing, using, has been gone through in a bit of decent detail now. We've outlined why he's doing it and what the difference is between quantum mechanics and this waffle that he's trying to use its validity to back up his theories here with regards to what at best can only be considered theoretical quantum mechanics, in my opinion, which is just a maths based on the assumptions of wave function collapse. They're now getting superposition collapse and then explain it mathematically. This is not done and validated with experiment, as we show with Schrodinger's cat. So it's another, to me, it shows the showman that he is and the flim-flam he's presenting. Because without what we've just been through, people would take that this is a legitimate follow-on. But I think we've made that distinction that he's going from quantum mechanics into theoretical mathematical quantum.
Right, we've covered enough pussy. Let's move on to Cox.
Yeah.
So I say sometimes in my live shows, it's kind of a joke, right? So I'm not insulting philosophers here, but I say there's only one interesting question in philosophy, Right? And I don't really mean it, but I think it sounds funny. So the interesting question is, what does it mean to live a finite, fragile life in an to live a finite, fragile life in an
God. We were asked for facts at the beginning, were we not, Arwin? Right? Was it Neil that pointed this out, actually? Where's the facts? We're now onto philosophy. Oh, my God.
No, but this is
Let's
the
have another
crucial bit of
half-hour
it.
discussion about this before you move on.
That's what I was about to ask. Where are the facts?
Right.
No,
Doesn't
I haven't
matter.
heard a fact yet.
You're about to get his philosophical worldview, and the reason for all this bullshit is to reaffirm you're insignificant, you're nothing, you're not special, you're not loved, you're not created for a purpose, you're just a ball of dirt of randomness.
I've got 125 people watching. Let's share the show. Let's see if we can get to 150 while we cover clocks.
infinite, eternal universe? So that's not that funny, right? It's a good question. What does it mean to live a finite, fragile life in an infinite, eternal universe? And I think the answer is that, sort of paradoxically, whilst we are definitely physically insignificant.
So when offering an answer to a philosophical question, he's going to offer a paradox as an answer to the question.
No, he's told you you're nothing, you're dirt. He keeps pointing it out. It's a false dichotomy he's about to present, isn't it? At what point in his dichotomy does he say, no, you are created, there is a creator, yeah, and you are loved, that you have a purpose? I can't tell you what that purpose is. That's for you to find out. But he's not going to present that option.
He's offering the opposite. He's about to say we are definitely physically insignificant.
Yeah,
I've just said, you know, that the Earth is one star around one. The Earth is one planet around one star amongst 400 billion stars in one galaxy.
No, it's not. Earth's not a sphere. We've debunked that.
Galaxy amongst 2 trillion galaxies in a small patch of the universe, right? So
no, we're not in a patch of the universe. The lights in the sky are just lights in the sky above our head. We're not part of a patchwork of them. The ground is not the sky.
Definitely small. You can't argue with that. We're just specks of dust.
No, we're not. I'm not a speck of dust. Quite the reverse. I'm very, very complicated. I assure you. Please smash the super chat.
But if you think about what we are, so everybody, me and you, everybody.
You just told us we're insignificant specks of dust. Now, you think that, and you want your audience to think that. I know it's not the case.
We're just collections of atoms, right? Some of them are as old as time, pretty much, and some of them...
No, my atoms aren't as old as time. They're as old as my atoms are as old as they are, since they've come out. I've got an age. You know, this meaningless drivel that you're spewing is just not relevant to your philosophy on the meaning of life.
The other ones, everything else other than the hydrogen in our bodies was made in stars, right? So it's...
See, covered this earlier. This is the whole being born in the heart of a dying star, the elements, blah, blah, blah.
We're all cooked over billions of years.
He just shot himself in the foot.
Shot himself in the foot? Why?
Yep. So he's trying to explain an insignificant, godless, meaningless universe, while simultaneously having already set the precedent that in order for anything to materialize, you need sentient choice and experience in the first instance. So he's just committed a first cause fallacy. He's saying that everything exists, but existence requires choice in the first instance, which requires a mind in the first instance. So what he's actually done is proven that God created the universe. Well done, dumbass.
Yeah, but even 5 minutes earlier, he was saying that it's the other way around. I know we just covered this, but it starts off with the matter and then you get the person, as opposed to the way he's just described it in shooting himself in his own foot.
Yeah, he wants to say that in one instance, but then he provides you a matrix of realization that requires choice in the first instance. So he's absolutely living in cognitive dissonance.
Yeah, chocolate.
I was going to say, is that a snatch your own wig off fallacy?
Not quite. He's nearly there, though. He's been subtle enough about it to not say he snatched his own wig off.
This pattern that can think. So suddenly, as the great Carl Sagan said, you have a means by which the universe understands and explores itself.
Right, so insignificant specks of dust and matter suddenly are assessing themselves when they're not people. So the universe can assess, but we can't because we're insignificant. So the
Oh,
universe
that's
is your God. It has influence over you, you being an insignificant speck of nothing.
He's an overlord.
Yep.
That's just the point that Overlord's just made. He's just now contradicted himself because he's been talking about how you need an observer for all these things, but now he's had to twist it round to form the universe, so the universe has to observe itself. Is that right, Overlord? What he's
Correct. That's the problem is regardless of how you take this, when you get to the end, you need a first knower. There's no way around it. So he's trying to attribute the first knower to the universe itself, which is a self-caused first cause fallacy.
Okay, so just to tie it back
Because he
into...
needs the knower. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, to tie it back into how this directly relates to quantum mechanics and specifically the double slit experiment, when we come to that conclusion of the knower, that's knowing, in the case of the double slit, knowing which path the light went through, that's you having knowledge as a direct causal influence.
Which is this is why they call it the hard problem of consciousness in the quote-unquote alleged sciences. They have absolutely no explanation for consciousness from a material universe, period. None. Zip, zilch. Everything they try results in a fallacy, period.
Well, in this instance, he's drawn out what, pictures of zoomed in lights in the sky and said they look like a brain. But therefore consciousness is formed in the stars as they're connected through what looks like neural connections. That's what he's inferring, and he's linked it all back now to basically that, the first, what did you say, first cause fallacy? Because the all-knowing universe is sentient and therefore had the ability to create things. It's like, well, that in itself is a creation story.
And that sounds unlikely when you put it like that, that you can have a few things that were cooked in the hearts of stars, you stick them together in a pattern and suddenly it has some ideas and starts writing music and art and things.
People do that. The insignificant specks of dust do that, not the universe. Yeah, it doesn't make any sense because it's not true. You've taken away all ability and cause for any person by saying that they're just insignificant and then ascribing all of the wonders that people can achieve to the bloody universe.
That's quite difficult to comprehend.
It's because it's not true. The universe didn't come up with Beethoven's music. Beethoven did.
Right. But that happened here. We know that because we're sat here having a conversation.
So what? So the universe gave Beethoven's music to the world? No, man did that. The insignificant speck of dust did that.
And so the question then becomes, well, on how many other worlds did that happen?
No. Beethoven created his music here. It wasn't some other world that gave us music and art.
And that's where I think the value can come in, because it's a reasonable guess, and it's just a guess, right? But it's reasonable. You can make the argument that...
So based on a guess, you're going to make an argument. Okay.
There aren't any other worlds where this...
So what? Completely self-contradicting everything you've just said. No other worlds to create the music and art. Okay.
Happened. Certainly in our galaxy.
Can I pick Overlord's brain a second on this? So, from a philosophical point of view, we're not going to get any nuclear fusion in the hearts of stars until we've got sentient life to observe it. But you need the fusion to occur to get larger atoms, the molecules, the peptides, through their philosophy to do it. Is that the paradox you're talking about? Because you...
Yes.
And
yeah,
he's
so
filling it in by now trying to... Go on.
He presented you with quantum processes that require sentience in the first instance, but he said the first half of the universe didn't require that. Only the second half did.
Yeah.
So he's completely retarded. Let's put it that way.
Total paradox, isn't it? Or just bullshit. Or he made strap-on storyline because he's got one thing that's been solid, and now to be able to allow that, you've got to have a secondary cause, which then disappears once you've got sentient life.
Yep.
Well, they need to have. So hello everyone. They need to have a force of gravity for a star, for gravitational accretion for these stars to even happen. And the stars need to create their own toroidal field.
galaxy.
What's gravity?
So it could be that this planet, notwithstanding its physical insignificance, is the only place where
notwithstanding how
thinks,
unimportant we are.
Right. For me,
right. Notwithstanding its physical insignificance. So the universe has been ascribed art and music, but the planet itself, insignificant.
billions of light years in every direction. And suddenly, therefore, you end up considering this planet as being the most valuable place in the local universe, notwithstanding the fact that it's small. And that idea, it's not just a complete random guess, by the way.
No, it's based on Kepler's third law. It's based on a lot of assumptions, one of which being that Earth is a sphere in the first instance.
Nathan, I don't know if you picked up in this, but we're small and insignificant.
Yeah.
So just, if he says it one more bloody time, it's the repetition is preachy. How many times is he going to keep pointing out this? Why is he pointing out is more my point. What is the point in this repetition of this diminishment of us?
Maybe we should cover. Maybe we should cover.
Accept that the universe.
Go on, Chocolate.
You gotta accept that the universe is this vastness that you are not capable of even understanding, even in the most minuscule way, because you are an insignificant speck of dust that just happened to get together with a bunch of other insignificant specks of dust and formed you. This is nonsense.
I know real quick. They want a godless universe.
It's because they're a cult. Adam's question is, why would he be describing it in this manner? Look up how cults treat their members. That's how they do it. Same as this. You aren't that important here. In the big scheme of things, the overall cause, in this case, what's being punted as the religion, what's the overlord? Well, it's the universe. You, on the other hand, you're an insignificant speck of dust. It's a cult.
We've had a bit of a look. Astronomers have pointed radio telescopes up at the stars for a while, 50 years or more now, and heard nothing. We've seen no evidence of any civilizations out there beyond Earth, and that's...
But yet, you decide that there's other planets and other universes and life's mathematically certain.
It's a surprise. There's a reasonably plausible explanation for that, which is biology, which is that if you look at the history of life on Earth...
Pound says he's not going to cover the science of biology now.
And you see that life began pretty much as soon as it could here on Earth. We have evidence there was life 3.8 billion years ago.
What evidence is that? In terms of the timelines, you're going to date the surrounding artifacts of the rocks based on their surrounding articles and items found around them, which have got dates. And the reason you've got dates for those items is because you know how old the rocks are. And you know how old the rocks are based on what's around the rocks. So that's what we've got in terms of evidence for that, physically. Beyond that, it's just part of your timeline in the heliocentric model. This 3.8 billion years is purely based on their mathematics of the speed of light and the CMB. That's where he's got that number from. We've covered all of that in this show. Every bit of it's been debunked.
Something like that. And the Earth's 4.5 billion years old. So
again, we've debunked every aspect of his timeline in this show.
Pretty quick in geological time. You
really? Yeah, again, listen to the nonsense coming out of his mouth. 3.8 billion years. It's a blink of an eye! You complete nonce. What a total and utter charade. Tell somebody that something that absolutely dwarfs everything you can imagine in scale is actually tiny. In terms of how long something took to occur, 3.6 billion years. Nothing. Blink of an eye. Really nothing at all in terms of time. Well, what's that? You only live for about 80 years? Yeah, that's because you're so insignificant. You know, blink of an eye is 3.6 billion years. What significance do you think you're going to have in 80? It's not like you're going to create the works of Beethoven or anything. The universe could do that, but not Beethoven.
You get life. But then if you talk about advanced life, complex life, multicellular life, then there's no evidence at all beyond back beyond 1 billion years. Actually, really, in the fossil record, 650 million years ago or so.
That's what fossil records. That's what I was looking for when I said artifacts found around the rocks. They know how old the rocks are because the fossils that they found around the rocks. How do they know how old the fossils are? Well, they date them based on the rocks they're found in.
Or something. You start seeing the first evidence of complex creatures. So that means that on this planet, it took over 3 billion years to go from...
Was it just me, or was that a complete non sequitur? There is an explanation for it. He didn't give it, I did, and the contradictions within it. But as far as he just laid it out, it was just a complete non sequitur. We've got fossils, therefore billions of years. That's non sequitur.
From a single
Just
cell.
Go
on.
Straight contradiction that he's presenting. We're small, we're insignificant. But he's highlighted how we've got no other examples whatsoever of anything like us. He highlights how amazing this evolutionary life form is. So even with his own summary, he's contradicting himself. We are amazing, even in his view of the world, because there's nothing else out there. 50 years of radio signals that we've not picked a thing up. There's nothing out there like us by his standards. So he's contradicting himself there.
No, I disagree. I know from recent history that there is stuff out there. It's just out there changed about 50 years ago from being the horizon to being space. Maybe a bit longer than 50 years. But in our recent history, we started looking at and pointing telescopes at and listening to the sky. Like, where have they found people and lands and worlds? For example, the New World. Was that found in the sky? No. It's found out towards the horizon. But they've just taken what used to be literally called outer space. That was out beyond where you knew, beyond the horizon. That's where you find land. That's where you find aliens. Not in the sky.
To anything more concrete.
He's admitted that, hasn't he? They haven't found anything. 50 years of searching, they've not found anything to support anything like us. They can make pictures up and say, look, there's another planet, there's this anything that confirms that we are insignificant and just a random thing that happens in the universe through that imaginary initial creator will that doesn't exist now because we've got life to reify things or to actualize things.
Yeah, but where did they find nothing? Sorry, Neil.
Exactly, Brian. Where?
They found it in the interim between I was told to go and 3 people spoke.
In the
That's where
sky.
they found it.
Just to answer, Brian, in the sky.
Yeah, but this is no. They found nothing.
No, nothing. You guys not pay attention to the host? I mean, good grief.
1 second. They found nothing.
No, 0 seconds.
For 50 years.
3 seconds.
I think what he's trying to say is that it was his turn.
I don't know what he's trying to say. He's not allowed to
he's
speak.
trying to say no because it was his turn to speak and everybody spoke. That's what he's trying to say.
Oh well, I'll go. I didn't realize that was happening. So I'll try to say something in a while. You go ahead, AI.
All right. All I was going to say to Nathan's point is that there is at least one telescope allegedly pointed horizontal, named Lucifer, and it's a binocular telescope. Why they're pointing it horizontal, I'll leave that up to your imagination.
Well, my point was that they spent 50 years finding nothing out in their belief. Didn't mean they found nothing. They just didn't find anything that supports their belief. So for 50 years, their belief turned up with nothing. And if Brian Cox wants to say that I'm insignificant and Nathan and everyone else is insignificant and all the people that matter to me are insignificant, then Brian Cox, you're also insignificant, and so is your absolute horse manure theories.
Yo, Brian, I love you because I was thinking the same shit. It's like, how is he sitting here telling us how insignificant and small and nothing we are? Well, doesn't that make him the same thing? So who the hell is he to tell us that? Why should I listen to him, Mr. Insignificant Speck of Dust guy?
He's the
with
one
a
telling
doctorate
you.
or whatever the hell.
No, he's not implying it to him, although it does automatically apply to him. But he is the one telling you this, though, isn't he? So Cult.
Chocolate. Chocolate. He wants that. He wants to be small and insignificant. Then there's no questions asked after he dies to creator. So that's why they're atheists.
Maybe.
Than a single cell. And then another 500 million years or so to go from the multicellular things to a civilization. So it's 3.5 to 4 billion years. It's a third of the age of the universe. That is a really long time. If you say that's an unbroken...
Again, just another non sequitur. Because, as supported by...
chain of life on a little piece of rock in a violent universe, and that chain was not cut for 4 billion years in order to get us. And that might be a big ask, right? We live in a really violent universe.
Again, non sequitur. How is that directly connected to your origin story? Just saying it doesn't make it so. You haven't evidenced it with anything.
You look at the Milky Way and you look at that arc.
Now, here we go. So we're now going to look at the lights in the sky. So cut to, if we look at the lights in the sky...
arc of stars across the sky, 400 billion suns. All there will be up there at best is slime. It's just slime. Nothing. Right? And I think that's...
But did you just say that in the sky there was slime?
That's what I heard.
I heard 400 billion suns, not stars, which is what we say, suns.
Yeah, slime. He said it.
Slime? In the sky?
Yeah, but he...
best is slime. Yeah?
Just keep
Sky
listening.
slime.
Reasonable guess. That's where I start from. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if that's wrong.
It is.
Then you go, okay, good, well, fine. But at the moment, it looks like there isn't anything else other than slime. We haven't...
So it must be slime. I mean, it's not looking like it's anything else. What
They
the
slime
hell?
me.
Is it just me? I mean, we also kind of don't have any other story, and therefore it's definitely unicorns. I mean, it couldn't really be anything else. There's nothing else to show it isn't unicorns.
We haven't even discovered slime, by the way, yet. We're still in the position where we've not seen anything. Not even a single cell on Mars or the moons
You know
of
what it
Jupiter
is?
or somewhere like that.
Goodbye.
So at the moment,
Go on.
It's quantum ether, isn't it? Slime. We haven't seen any of it yet.
Yeah, Adam, he says it's slime. Then he says, but we haven't found any yet. But my theory is it's slime.
So his theory...
You mean ectoplasm?
No. His theory is we came from slime. He can't show us coming from slime. There's no evidence that we came from slime, but we came from slime. And we haven't found any slime in the sky. That's what he's arguing.
But one day science will progress and then we'll find it.
Once we've decided
he's
what slime
already
is,
stated-
I'm sure science will find it for him.
Already stated that the best thing we would hope to find up there, in his belief, is slime. So he's inserted that mental image into people's heads. So now people are kind of 50% in the belief that there is slime on some other planet somewhere where we can't see. So that's what it is. He's inserted this idea that, and then he's turned around and said, "Well, I don't have any evidence for it." Yeah, because you're making it all up as you go along.
Yeah, but it's bolstering his origin story, isn't it? Because his origin story has us as slime. So he's saying, well, we're looking for slime in the sky. We haven't found any. It's just automatically making you assume that that's something that's to be considered valid or something to be looking for. So like if I say, we all came from coal, coal over time evolved into people. Therefore, I'm going to look in the sky for coal, because if I can find coal, it's the origins of my life that I say is where life began. Therefore, we're looking for coal in the sky.
Yeah,
right,
check
carbon-based unit.
That's why I use
You
coal.
can find him in the mirror if he cares to look.
at the moment, we are alone, as far as we can tell.
No. In the next room, I've got my wife and kids. I'm surrounded by people on 2 different servers. I'm not alone. Neither are you if you're watching this. You're not alone. He wants you to have that feeling of loneliness when he tells you that you're an insignificant speck of dust and you're all alone. No, you're not. Nothing could be further from the truth.
Do you have a favourite planet, star, or galaxy out there?
Favourite planet? Well, it's a
Who cares? Have you got a favourite colour?
cliche, right? But
I'm particularly partial to Venus. You're going to start boring us like you did with your boring descriptions of the Super Hadron Collider.
I actually asked, this is a name drop now, I asked Jeff Bezos that question once.
I asked Jeff Bezos and he said Mars.
So there's a name. And he said, correctly, Earth.
Oh, right, he said Earth, so he affirmed that we're a planet. Isn't that amazing? I asked him which light in the sky you like best, and he said us, because we're a light in the sky. Isn't that amazing? Isn't Jeff Bezos clever?
Right, Earth is the best planet, and that's true. So because
no, it's not true. We're not a light in the sky. So you're looking for land and people and life in the sky, while simultaneously describing the ground as a light in the sky.
Everything I've just said, right? I just said it's the only place where meaning exists potentially.
Isn't it just an insignificant speck of dust?
Galaxy of
The
400 billion.
contradiction again. Yeah, he's saying how special in his world we are, yet still trying to scare us. We're all alone. Yet this is probable because we can get life through slime. So it will happen elsewhere, but he's got no evidence. The other bit again is him dropping it in. You say you picked it up, and he's got a lot better. You know, from the early days, look at how he's doing it, because he drops his fact for you to accept. We are a planet with a laugh and moves on to the next point. He's up to NDT standards here, I think, because the tacit acceptance, he moves on so quickly from.
Yeah, it's the rumpus's trick.
Well,
drop it in and then move on quick. Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, well, I mean, if there is no life anywhere else other than here, would that not contradict us being supposedly insignificant? Like, I only have one heart, so it's insignificant. Do you know what I mean? I only have one Rolls Royce, totally insignificant. Do you know what I mean? That it's like we only have life here, so we're insignificant. No, that would not insignificant, would it?
No, and
but he's doing. But he's sorry.
No, I'm
okay. When he says insignificant, what's he opposing it to? Significance. So if there was a creator and I had a purpose, I would have a significance. He's gotten rid of that side of the argument and just says we're insignificant.
Yeah, that's the crazy thing about the world we live in, because I tie it all back to logical fallacy. There really is nothing wrong other than, well, that's what is wrong. So they replace something definitive and they pose a question to you that leaves you empty. That's why their philosophy is bankrupt everywhere you look in the world. And that doesn't have to be the case. All you have to do is accept reality.
That would be your favourite planet as a result of that. But beyond that, it's in the solar system. So let's go to Elon Musk. Let's mention the other rocket.
Elon Musk really likes Jupiter.
Rocket engineer. So he wants to go to Mars. Might well get to Mars.
No, he won't. You can't get to a light in the sky. You're looking for land up in the sky and describing the ground as a light. It's nuts. He needs to get a boat and go out towards the horizon, what they used to call outer space. You know when you do something and it's successful, like going out towards the horizon and finding new worlds? Yeah, that would be what I would suggest if you want to find new worlds. You know, like they did it, they found them, now you do it again. Now what you've done is gone, you know what, that whole notion of finding more land by travelling out towards the horizon, sod that. I think land is in the empty area filled with gas above my head. So I'm going to point all viewing equipment at that. And look for slime.
That's the only other planet you could go to, actually.
You can't go anywhere. You can't go to lights in the sky.
In our solar system, because Mercury is way too hot. Venus is horrendously hot.
How the hell do you know? You don't know what these lights in the sky are, let alone how bloody hot they are.
90 atmospheres pressure and sulfuric.
Atmosphere? Atmo? Air? Sphere? A shape? No, that's an oxymoron. Talking about the atmospheric pressure on planets. No. Air, atmo, does not take the shape of a sphere arbitrarily in a sky vacuum. All of this nonsense is a violation of the second law of thermodynamics. Cox.
Uric acid rain, it melts lead on the surface, right? So you're not going there. And the rest of them are made of gas. So you're not...
Gas not expanding into sky vacuums?
Going there either. So Mars is the only place beyond Earth that we could feasibly ever go with planets. We could imagine perhaps going to some of the moons of Jupiter and Saturn in the...
No, we couldn't. You could in your heliocentric model, because you've got the sky possessing more land to travel to with rockets, which is utterly absurd. You know, in recent history, we found new worlds. They weren't in the sky.
The far future, that's much more difficult.
What would happen if we travelled into a black hole?
Sorry, number one, we can't travel through a second law of thermodynamics violation. Number two, a black hole is a conceptual idea conceived in the mind's eye of Einstein and then superimposed onto a composited images from various different parts of the world of the sky. Black holes aren't a thing. You're not going to experience them. They don't exist in physical reality. They've been conjured in mathematics. And then after their conjuring, they've been imposed on composite images. That's what black holes are.
So the old answer of what happens if you jump into a black hole...
There's an old answer. Yeah, if any of this was scientifically valid, it would be empirical. You wouldn't need old and new answers for things.
Is you go to the end of time.
End of time? Like it's a road you can travel along? Time's not a path.
That's this pure Einstein, right? You get spaghettified on your way.
Total nonsense. Getting to the edge of a black hole and being ripped through a fourth dimensional space-time that we don't exist in.
To the end of time, which means you get stretched infinitely, actually, and then squashed.
No, you don't. Fourth dimensional space-time isn't something that you can stretch. You can't travel through it to the ends of it to be spaghettified.
So you get dissociated into a train of atoms, and then everything goes to the end of time.
In what? Quote-unquote theory? Definitely not. In a mathematical fourth dimensional reality we don't live in.
Now, as of 2019, I would say, we think that if you think of yourself as information, so if you think of let's say, think very 2022, right? Let's say you burn a book. We're very fashionable in today's current political climate. So burn a book and collect everything that comes out of the book.
What's he talking about? Is he about to launch into the laws of nature again?
The ashes and all
the supernatural.
No, he's gonna make a statement of getting all that information back.
Gas and everything. Then in principle, you can reconstruct the book. Not in practice, right? But you can imagine if you collect every single thing and measure it, in principle, you can reconstruct the book.
No, that's a violation of the second law of thermodynamics. Entropy travels in one direction. It's also labelled the arrow of time. It's not moving backwards.
Information is conserved in all of physics, which means that so basically, if you can measure everything perfectly, you can predict what happened in the past.
There's his first convolution. In physics, what's physics? The physical. What's maths? That's language. It's descriptions of things.
He's incorrect. You may be able to put the book back together, but the kind of point the information that was in the book, the supernatural information that was conveyed, can't be. That's the extra information. I assume he's going to miss because he's going to make everything just materialistic.
Yep.
I still haven't heard any facts.
No, there hasn't been any yet.
Going to happen in the future. It's called determinism, that, right? So the old picture of black holes, and Stephen Hawking believed this for a long time, had a bet about it, actually.
About his beliefs about what black holes were, the old school, the old descriptions, the ones that back then we'd have been told we had to understand, appreciate, and know were real. But they're now the old and dusty, busted old crap that you can now debunk with your new nonsense stories that have no seat in reality, in a fourth dimensional space-time world bending with spaghettification at the edges of black holes.
Is that they seem like they destroy information. But you can just kind of see it goes to the end of time, right? It's gone. And then they evaporate away.
No, you're not watching things go to the end of time. You don't watch things travel along a path of time that you've reified. It's because you're just talking in an Einsteinian conceptual world of fourth dimension, where the fourth dimensional time is something we exist in and can stretch. No, it isn't.
And it seemed that there was no way, even if you gathered all the Hawking radiation that had come off for trillions of years, there's no way you could reconstruct what went in. So therefore, if you jumped into a black hole, you'd be erased from the universe. But that break...
But don't be scared about the lights in the sky with no slime and the description in maths that's been superimposed onto a composite image that could erase you from existence. Don't be scared.
Pretty much every law of physics.
It's got nothing to do with any laws of physics. This is total nonsense. You're just dropping this in to pepper it like it sounds like it's scientifically validated. Number one, laws of physics is a bastardization in itself. Physics is science. That's the establishment of cause and effect through systematic experimentation based on a hypothesis. That's science. That's physics. In all walks of physics. That's all of the subcategories of science. If they're dealing with the physical, they're not laws. Laws are just descriptions that we ascribe to things that are happening. Now, those phenomena have not been through physics. They've not been through science. Laws of nature. But you want to convolute the two to make this sound more sciencey, don't you, Cox?
Right, things don't erase information. They scramble it up, make it difficult to read, but they don't destroy it. But now we think, actually, no, even black holes don't destroy information.
It's fundamentally untrue. It can be shown to be untrue with variations of the double slit experiment. Once the information's been destroyed, that's it. And in terms of the universe understanding whether or not things are going to happen, that's predetermined at the point that the information's acquired. In other words, if you've got information that's acquired and stored and can be accessed, you will get wave function collapse. If you've got information that's recorded, stored, but inevitably gets destroyed, you would have never had wave function collapse in the experiment. Yeah, this is the
Nathan,
basis of quantum mechanics. The delayed choice quantum eraser also verifies this.
Nathan, how did he start the show? A big bang, and before that, nothing. Where did the information come from?
Puffed itself into existence. Didn't require you. You're insignificant.
Information. So it turns out that now we think, and this is very 2022 papers, right? If you jumped into a black hole...
Nobody's jumping into Einsteinian concepts.
Then we do think that if a super being in the far future could...
So not only will you be erased from existence, you'll also become a super being based on Hawking radiation, right? So is this the plot of He-Man or Spider-Man, or is it the Incredible Hulk? I forget which.
Collect every bit of Hawking radiation that came off the black hole for trillions and trillions of years and stick it into a giant quantum computer, then they could reconstruct everything that fell in. So actually...
What?
Wow. That sounds like a great science fiction story. I mean, that'll make a great science fiction story, I'm sure. But what does it have to do with reality?
Nothing.
Very little.
In some sense, you come out. Stephen Hawking had a bet with John Preskill about this. So, and it was, I can't remember, I think...
What is it with fundy Muppets and their cults and their bets?
It was the 90s when he conceded the bet.
Back through history, people challenging normality and reality with nonsense and religion come up with bets. And it's the bet that gets focused on, isn't it? Of course it is. Yeah, we experience that in our genre, don't we?
Nathan, what did they say they can reconstruct? I missed that.
Everything from nothing.
Oh, really? So that means if you're going to reconstruct, that it was constructed once before, correct?
Yeah,
but
if you take everything and destroy it and then feed it back through a quantum computer, you can get back all the information of the cold, empty nothing. Obviously.
It might have been the late 80s. But so he had a bet And the bet was that Stephen's calculation initially from the 70s said that black holes destroy information. And so he thought that was true for a long time.
But based on a calculation, he thought that black holes that had never been even supposed to have been viewed, they only existed in his mathematics, destroyed information. That's what he thought. Meanwhile, in the same time period, there's experiments taking place in quantum realm.
And he had a bet with John Preskill.
Meanwhile, science is happening. They're having bets, these two dickheads, with their stories. Meanwhile, science progresses and advances humanity.
How can some supposed physical phenomenon out there, according to him, how can that destroy information? Information's not physical, right? It doesn't exist physically. So how does that make sense in the first instance?
Good point.
Because it doesn't make sense. That's why he's using a story of the bet. Just wait until how he finishes. You're laughing because two smart people placed the bet. You forget how stupid the argument is.
He's saying the reified mathematical fourth dimensional can destroy the informational supernatural. That's his statement.
I'd never pay up on that bet. Never.
The bet was a set of encyclopedias. So whoever lost the bet would have to give the other one a set of encyclopedias. And
at this point, who gives a crap? All we've had is about a couple of minutes of the details of the bet.
It's a diversion move to get you to believe their position that has no basis in reality. When you finish the bet and what happens, they laugh.
All the bet is used for is a tool to introduce a false dichotomy. So there's going to be two situations that are being bet on. Neither side will be correct, but when one is claimed to be proven in the circumstances of the bet, which might be based on maths as opposed to physics. Well, in my maths, it did prove true. Or in our now observation, it tied into my predictions in maths like Nostradamus. Therefore, I'm right. Therefore, the false dichotomy I set up in this bet means that my side that won is true. Therefore, multiverses and black holes, because I won the bet. Just a way of introducing a false dichotomy.
Be that good, will it? It'll be the other bloke's theory turned out to be unsustainable because of quantum mechanics. Therefore, bloke A wins. Not that there's any proof, just you disprove one. It's probably more likely what we'll get.
He switched the word around from black hole, right? He's actually talking about memory holes. That's memory holes destroy information, right? Black holes don't.
Yeah, he's confused. When he's saying 2022, he means 1984.
I want to know if this super being he's talking about will be insignificant.
What, the Hulk character that's gone through spaghettification, disappeared from existence, but then been subject to radiation and become all-powerful? That one.
The one that's going to build the supercomputer?
Yeah, that one.
Edification? That sounds like a meal.
You just got to remember, there's caution to be had here. When you feed this information through the supercomputer, it might put together the information so well that it creates the time before the Big Bang, therefore the nothing, which would wipe us all out of existence. I would say we shouldn't be scared about this, but ultimately we should be aware.
Neil, the spaghettification only exists in the pasta.
And then Nathan said we feed the computer.
Because of some work by someone called Maldacena, actually, ultimately, Stephen said, no, they don't destroy information. The information comes out. It's conserved. So he conceded the bet and gave John Preskill the encyclopedias. He said, what I should have done is I should have burnt the encyclopedias and given him the ashes.
Right.
He didn't prove it. The other bloke conceded, a bit of my thing's wrong. So you must be right in the false dichotomy.
Right. Called it.
Because all the information is still there. Right. So, yeah.
And Darwin was right.
Yes, he was.
What you described earlier on, you described the universe as a dangerous place, a violent place. What is the most likely way that the world could end?
I'm going to say by knife injury.
Dun, dun, dun.
Well, so the way that the Earth will end,
stabbing,
ultimately is as a cinder right? It's because what's going to happen is that the sun, in about, well, starting in a few billion years' time.
A very short period of time, few billion years, blink of an eye.
Actually, but it's going to start growing. It'll grow as it gets older.
As substantiated by what?
Older. And it'll swell up. It probably won't engulf the Earth.
Probably won't. You probably shouldn't be terrified of this, because it's only going to happen in a blink of an eye. That's billions of years, and by comparison to your insignificant timeline, you really shouldn't worry about this. But yeah, there's a good chance the sun's going to eat Earth. Oh my God!
But it'll get close. The Earth will probably drift out because the sun will lose some mass. So but it'll toast it basically. So the Earth will end up toasting.
Oh, I was wrong. Not stabbing, toasting.
Toasted as a cinder, probably still orbiting the remains of the sun, which will be what's called a white dwarf star.
Right, so not stabbed, burnt to death. I see. Very scary.
Which is just something that basically fades away. So that's what's going to happen in about 5 billion years.
Is it? As substantiated by other lights in the sky, right? Because Elon Musk said Earth was a light in the sky when you asked him what his favourite light in the sky was. So therefore, we've seen other lights in the sky have this sort of behaviour, and therefore that's what's going to happen to Earth over time, or the sun over time. As substantiated by what? The lights in the sky aren't the ground. Yeah, what happens to the ground has sod all to do with the lights in the sky in this regard.
I'm laughing because it's, well, that's what's going to happen. So that
people laugh at me when I say this stupid nonsense, but I just respond. I just say that's what's going to happen, and then I move on.
That's how our world ends.
Dun, dun,
as a crisp, basically a cinder. If you mean by the end of the world, you mean the end of civilization.
Yeah, let's just talk about it as dark and as scary as we could possibly be. Maybe preface this with people not being scared.
Then long before that, we'll have had to escape because it will become the conditions on.
Oh, before we're toasted, you're gonna need to run away.
The planet will not support complex life like us. It'll be too hot.
Because the sun's going to eat the Earth eventually. Of course, that light in the sky is going to eat us, and it's going to become too hot. Obviously, because Cox said so. I mean, people say he's silly when he says this stuff, but that's what's going to happen.
The possibility is that we discussed we could destroy ourselves, which is, it would be, given that it's quite possible that there is nowhere else in a galaxy then.
What, in the sky? What about out to the horizon where they found new worlds? Like, have found new worlds. What about there? Could we go there? Are we not looking? We're looking in the sky and deciding that we're trapped and there's nowhere else to go. Oh no! Maybe stop looking at the sky for land when land's beneath your feet.
As we said before, that would be a really silly thing to do. So I think it's more likely we might not have to wait for the sun to do it because we might do it through our own stupidity.
So let me get it straight. We are both insignificant specks of dust, but also capable of our own destruction in the universe. Wow. So our own stupidity could simultaneously end life itself, but we're also insignificant specks of dust. And the universe made Beethoven. Okay, I'm following.
Is this when Greta Thunberg is invited into
what, faking being arrested?
Yeah.
Now, can you talk a little bit about the dirt that's been for an asteroid protection? What is that mechanism?
What? Asteroid protection? Oh no, this sounds absolutely terrifying.
Well, yeah, so it sounds like science fiction, doesn't it? You say
it is science fiction. Rocks coming from the sky. Yeah, we're not finding land, and it's not depositing land here, even though it's simultaneously part of your creation narrative.
Well, we've all seen Hollywood films where asteroids come and...
So why are you prefacing this bullshit by telling us about Hollywood movies? What, because you know it sounds like nonsense made up by a storyteller? That's because what it is. It is a nonsense story made up by a storyteller, just like Hollywood.
Don't Look Up, right? Brilliant film, I think. Where an asteroid comes and we don't even believe it. So you see it. And people...
Look how he's smiling as he delivers this fear porn.
People don't even believe that things coming. But that's
the people were so stupid they didn't know they were in immediate death. You know, imminent death was around the corner. They didn't even know they're so stupid.
Right, that you know, we know that the dinosaurs, other than the birds, were wiped out by a big asteroid impact.
Oh, do we? As evidenced by
65 million years ago. We know that.
So we know that. We just know.
Soft tissue. Soft tissue.
Oh, of course. If it's preserved soft tissue, you know, like an old chicken wing found by on the sofa, I mean, it means it's billions of years old, obviously, Brian.
That. So it occasionally big pieces of rock hit the Earth.
When?
And occasionally those big pieces of rock are big enough to cause mass devastation.
No, according to your narrative, that's what's happened to the dinosaurs that may not have even existed in the first place. But no, I'm not seeing rocks come from the sky.
Doesn't something have to actually happen for it to happen occasionally?
Ever would be good.
Oh, okay.
As opposed to like a bit of doctored imagery from a Russian dash cam, where there's a thing that can bring death to everybody being witnessed through the windscreen, but the guy still manages to take his time, you know, indicate, look out for pedestrians, you know, things like that. That's what we get as evidence for rocks coming from the sky.
Oh, okay.
That easily take out a city.
It's just terrifying. If you're in a city now, well, you need to be worried that a rock could destroy you, just like in the movies.
Easily take out a country.
An entire country. If you're in a country right now, better be scared.
Sometimes take out, like the one that took out the dinosaurs, take out pretty much every big living thing on the planet. That's happened before, and it will happen again.
Says you. As evidenced by what?
Now, the big planet...
As evidenced by absolutely nothing.
Killer, so-called planet killer asteroids are very rare. I can't remember off the top of my head. It's something like 1 every 100 million years or so.
Blink of an eye.
Roughly, you'd imagine. But and we had
extremely frequent.
One about 60-odd million years ago, right?
Blink of an eye.
But the little ones that can take cities out, there was one in Siberia in, I think it's 1908. I might be slightly wrong. But...
And we all saw this, did we? Got video footage from 1908 of something hitting the planet and destroying an entire country or a city. We've got evidence of that, have we? Or have we got something that is subscribed to being that?
Roughly, the first bit of the 20th century, that exploded in an airburst over Siberia and flattened an awful lot of forest. And
so we got a lot of flattened forest. Did we have proof that that was something exploding in the sky from the air? Or did we just have the aftermath that's been ascribed to it? I'm pretty sure it's the latter.
If that had happened over a city...
Worse than that. It's, I think it was 20-odd years before they even found the place after the event. The Tunguska event. Talking about in Siberia.
So, I see. It's something that could wipe out a city, hit the quote-unquote planet, and no one noticed for 20 years. Shocking, isn't it?
I'm curious about the planet. Sorry, Brian. Go ahead, brother.
No, you go. I'll say it in a minute.
Yeah, going back to my question of doesn't something have to happen for it to happen occasionally? He was talking about planet killers. Is there a planet that we somehow observed that is not observable anymore because it was killed by one of these planet killers? Do we have one of those?
Alderaan.
Isn't Narnia strictly a planet? I mean, you travel through a parallel dimension to get there, but it's another planet, right?
No.
It's a realm.
Who did Silver Surfer work for? Silver Surfer works for planet killers.
That's a metaphor. We're talking planets.
Right, Adam confirmed. It's a realm. Okay.
Plutonium?
What, sorry?
Krypton. Oh.
Krypton.
Okay.
Yeah, there we go. I mean, obviously, even though he brought it up, we're not talking about Hollywood movies here. This is reality that you shouldn't be scared of, even though this is terrifying.
Well, we don't have anything to worry about. Because
Brian and Neil and 10th. Brian, then 10th, then Neil. Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, it's okay. Like, we don't have that to worry about because an airburst is going to disperse this massive meteor as it did in Tunguska in 1908.
Yeah, I was just going to add that I recall hearing a story that Planet Hollywood burned down one time.
No, I just wanted to say there's only one thing that could kill planets, and you should marvel at it because it's Galactus. Silver Surfer worked for him.
That's correct.
I know what can kill planets.
What's that?
Non-geometric horizons.
Yeah, I was going to say we kill planets.
Awful lot of cities.
Or you can, it can make planets as well. This same thing, can't it? Isn't this how we got our moon, Nathan? With one of these planet-killing events.
Yeah, Thea.
But that was at a glance. That was at a glance at him.
All right, yeah.
Yeah, it didn't actually destroy us. It worked to our advantage when it deposited its molten iron core into ours, making our molten iron core tie in quite nicely with the timeline that they've got that it didn't work with previously. So therefore, Thea smashed into us. I mean, there was a bet about it and everything.
These things happen. What we do now is we look for them quite sensibly. So we map the orbits of as the big asteroids. We've got most of them, we think.
What, assuming that we have orbital motion, assuming that Kepler was right, assuming that Earth is a sphere with an R value superimposed onto Venus, and the distances for these motions are actually going to be within the realm of hitting us because of the distances assumed by Kepler and the R value imposition onto Venus by Christian Huygens. No, I don't value any of this nonsense about tracking the lights in the sky and worrying that they're going to kill me.
Didn't he say that they do it sensibly? Doesn't he know about gas pressure argument?
No, clearly not.
That cross the Earth's orbits, and we monitor them all the time.
Assuming we've got orbits.
And we have what's called a keyhole system, and it says if one of these asteroids goes through this point in space at this time, then we're worried about it. And
then we better give an absolute shed load of money to whoever has identified that. Quick, give them millions. Billions, in fact.
We'll be very careful and we'll watch it. So we're watching them. And if one goes through the keyhole, then what you need to do is nudge it a bit so it doesn't hit the Earth.
All right. Like in Armageddon.
And the DART mission was the first mission designed to make sure that if we really want to hit an asteroid with something, then we can do it. And it's hard. And so we did it. It was a very clever mission because it's a double asteroid system.
What an absolute load of nonsense. How much did this cost?
This is starting to sound a bit like Space Pool on Red Dwarf.
Yep.
It's a double shot. I had to play off the cushion to pop that to get that asteroid away from Earth's orbit. Oh, it's just fantasy, isn't it?
I mean, they thought of using a mylar sail and attaching it, and then they went to the oil industry and said, have you got any giant drill rigs that we can fly up to the asteroid, drill in and deposit a nuclear weapon there? Because all of that is real.
So what the little one, that one of them was hit, so there's two of them going around each other. Then we hit one of them, and that means that you can measure the orbit afterwards of these two things orbiting around each other to see how much we deflected it.
Assuming we've got orbits, and that's what you're observing.
So it's a smart thing to do. So we're really developing the technology so that if we have to hit a big one and move it away, then we can do that. And it can't.
Yeah, you're going to need Bruce Willis.
Carl Sagan, he said correctly, if the dinosaurs had had a space program, they'd still be around. And that's basically
He's done it again. Nathan, he said correctly. If he keeps doing that, like he did it with the last thing, the Earth's a planet, correct? That which is true. He said like that. Keeps doing these reaffirming his bullshit by somebody else. Look, and Carl Sagan, he said correctly. Spelling.
I think at the what are we on 2.5 hour mark, I'm going to actually round out this live show. We will continue covering Cox in the after show. So if you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley programming streams, then stay tuned. As I say, there will be an after show to follow. Unfortunately, if you are watching this live, this is where we bid you farewell. So another massive thank you to all of you who smashed the super chat, liked, commented, shared, subscribed, joined as a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member, and all that good stuff. I've been Nathan Oakley once again. Stay tuned if you're watching on an after show, and I will see you all in the next video.
What a lovely day!